What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Lightning Snow back today with another video. Today, once again, I have my good friend Thunder G, or Thunder God, as everyone knows him. Say hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. What's going on, guys?
Today, I wanted to do a tier list, another tier list, because the last one I did, unfortunately, regrettably, was not the best. I'll be honest with you, and I'm pretty sure I said this before in a voting or in a community post, that I was just very tired that day, and I wasn't really all there at a certain point, but I do want to make it up to you guys by doing another tier list that a lot of people wanted to see, which was the Naruto fight tier list. So ranking every main fight or major fight in the Naruto series, ranking them from worst to best or F to S, as the video is implying. So today, what we're just going to be doing is just kind of going over each fight and talking about them and deciding where me and Thunder feel like they should be placed. And a video like this, it's obviously going to be like subjective for the most part, but me and obviously Thunder is going to do our best to be as objective as we can to do these fights credit, or to do these fights the most justice. So, and the way that the criteria is going to work for what makes a good fight is for me anyway, how the fight looks and the flow of it, like as far as like choreography, like obviously the fight itself has to be good, right? And so that's going to play a factor, but also for a lot of these, there's going to be a lot of narrative points that are going to be scored here. What the fight means narratively in the series and whatnot. Because some of these may not even have any narrative implications or may not have any narrative substance, and then the fight just could be really good. You know what I'm saying? So so it's gonna be tricky to do when it comes to some of these fights. But I think for the most part, we got a good handle on where this fight's going to go. Thunder, you got anything to say before we start?
No, I mean, just by the nature of tier lists, nobody's ever going to agree with everything, but we're just going to try our absolute best. You know what I mean? We're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess there's really no other place to start. So obviously you can see in the tier list, they're going on chronological order. We're not doing it by what fight we saw first. So, for example, we just go right on into Hashirama versus Madara at the Valley of the End. This one's, I feel like I get a lot of flack if I did not put this one in S tier. And so I don't want to be, unfortunately, I don't want to be throwing out S tier fights all over the place. But this one, this is like a cornerstone for Naruto as far as lore goes. And like we said, narratively speaking, this is the start. I know the whole Indra and Ashura thing it's here or there, but for me, this is the cornerstone of the Naruto history and whatnot. So I'd feel pretty remiss if I didn't put this in S tier, because I think it's just that. Cause speaking the choreography itself, it's really good. I know it kind of comes in through a flashback, but still, for what we got, I thought it was a very, very good fight. Thunder, what do you got to say?
I'll say this, because I will say, the possible thing for people is a lot of this fight was off screen, but from what we saw, this fight really did live up to the spectacle that we kind of wanted, because ever since we got saw Madara in the war, we obviously know how much Madara was built up. Mm-hmm. We were wondering, okay, this dude's an animal, but how much more of an animal did Hashirama have to be able to beat this dude? And I think that fight really, because nobody thought you could put the Susanoo on the QB. That was the coolest thing when it came out. Nobody expected that. So I think off of pure spectacle and what this fight meant for the series, lore wise, I think it deserves to be an S. Maybe A, I could see an argument for it, but I think it's just way too much of an important fight in this series and was a really testament to how strong these characters were.
As far as being objective, I'd still think I'd get hate comments for me putting in an A tier, and I would get those comments, but what is your problem? You must have something more. No, because and like you said, it's definitely a cornerstone, and again, it kind of comes through a flashback, but like you said, how much stronger did Hashirama have to be? And it's the quote from Madara in the war, Hashirama was the only one that could stop me, and he is unfortunately not with us. I'm bro, how, like you said, how much of a monster did Hashirama have to be able to beat someone like some Madara? So yeah, I'd agree. It's definitely an S tier. Next one, I'm assuming it just shows Obito, but I'm assuming it's Obito and Kakashi versus the Stone Ninja in the Third Great Ninja War, and
this gotta be DRF. I'll say this, it's a nice moment because he awakens his Sharingan, but it's not really a fight. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of him moving around, Obito being like, gosh, your eye, and then like this whole thing. So, it's not bad by any means, but again, just compared to a lot of what the series offers, like it's more so a cool moment more than a fight, if anything.
Well, again, talking about the criteria for me and what makes a good fight, it's got to be half like good choreography and half good, narrative, or that's what the spectrum is. And so if we're talking like choreography to narrative weight, this one's got to be like 70% narrative, and then 30% choreography. Like, there's definitely some good like fight choreography, good teamwork between Obito and Kakashi, but it's more of the narrative plot point that makes this fight so great. So I agree. It probably would go into, because it's Kakashi, I would like the whole Kakashi thing. I'd probably give it C. But I think if I had to be objective, I'd probably put it in D. Because again, I don't want to be being like throwing out big letters to fights like this that didn't last too long either. So
yeah.
So the next one we'll go with Obito versus the Blood Mist Village. And bro, like, this was, if there was a Game of Thrones scene in Naruto, this would be it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because we've been introduced to Obito way before this as a kid who didn't and couldn't really amount to much, at least without a Sharingan. And here we see him taking out, like, I don't even know how many freaking Anbu level ninjas with little to no trouble. And he's not even thinking straight. Like, he's not even like, that's the thing too. He's not even like cohesively fighting them. He's just freaking going nuts and not even having to really think about it. And he's still wiping the floor with everybody. So, and then the spectacle at the end where he's got that wood.
Oh, it's just beautiful,
so crazy. So, I don't know. I'm tempted to put it to either C or B. I don't know. What do you think, Thunder?
I'll be honest. I think this fight did an excellent representation, kind of displaying Obito's snap moment, and like it's kind of up like what the Joker says, like all it really takes is one bad day for certain people. Yeah. So I really did enjoy that. I think this fight has to be B off the animation alone. Like, even if you're like, okay, you could have just showed Obito waking his MS or whatever. I think just like showing the shift from like this good kid to like this nihilistic void individual, and like him just slaughtering all these. I think this deserves B off animation alone. But obviously, like the spectacle, how dark it was, because a lot of people, sometimes you kind of get lost in like the dark and gritty aspect of Naruto due to like a lot of the uplifting moments. But I like this point. I remember reading it weekly. Like this fight also stands up in the manga as well. It's just a phenomenal read. So I think B, honestly, maybe like even a high B. I would agree with that one, honestly, because we're talking about like choreography to narrative points. This one scores high. Like you said, there's a whole bunch of good choreography that, like, even though it is just him going nuts, it just shows how crazy and how dangerous of a threat even young Obito is going to be going forward, as far as like the history goes. So I would agree with him. B. Obito versus Minato during the Nine-Tailed attack, bro, like, so good.
How could I not put that in S tier? You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I don't want to keep throwing out like big letter fights for every time.
We're gonna try not to be generous with the S. It's just there's a lot of, you know what I mean. I get what he's saying. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's, for one thing, it's me. I love Minato. I love me some Minato. Like, and we don't get enough of him either way. I mean, I know in the war arc he goes to town. And he goes to work, but like, I don't know. This one was like, and I think Swag's mentioned this before. Like, it's really hard to get invested into a fight that when you know the outcome. But for what this fight gave us, like, even though we already knew Minato was going to die, but again, the fact that while we're in the fight, we thought even though we knew he was going to die, we thought he might have a chance to live. And it's like one of those things that you, in the back of your mind, even though you know what's going to happen, you're like, oh, maybe something will change because of how much damage she's doing to Obito. And again, at this point, we're led to believe that this Obito, or this Madara, quote unquote, was nigh unstoppable. But here we see our hero literally, saving the day. I mean, it's, Minato is that classic, cliche hero, and like he got done with business on Obito. So, and again, like we're talking about like narrative and choreography, this one exhibits both.
Even like the IQ aspect, there's it's like an all or nothing fight, and it's just you get the vibe. It just displays like a lot of what people have hyped up about Minato. Minato was that like once in a generation shinobi, you know? It really gives the vibe of how he was, and like the statements building up to him, and it just gives you an idea of like, wow, this is him. So I really enjoyed that. Even the nuance between these two characters' arsenals was just a treat at this point in the series, and it was a similar thing in the manga, but the anime just made this fight phenomenal. I can't give it enough praise.
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, I don't really have much qualms.
No, it's easily.
Naruto versus Mizuki. This one's honestly just more narrative. I mean, this was like 95% narrative and like 5 to 10 like choreography. There's really not much to it. If we want to count the Iruka stuff in it, it's kind of cool, like with Iruka kind of one-upping Mizuki with the transformation jutsu and whatnot. Because at the time, the transformation jutsu was like the jutsu. You know, episode 1, that was the jutsu, you know, aside from the shadow clone. And so it's like, it is kind of cool to see that kind of stuff. So like narratively, it's great. It's like Naruto's cornerstone moment from him finally learning his signature jutsu. So we got to give it that, but I don't want to hate on this moment because it's like, again, it's like almost like the precursor.
I think you summed it up. It's like more of a moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like after the point on the image, there's no fight. It just cuts to Mizuki.
I'm not going to put it in F because I feel like that's a negative connotation if I put it in F. So because again, it's Naruto and it's his first moment. So I want to put it in D just because of like what it means narratively going forward. I'd feel like crap if I put it in F. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, Kakashi versus Zabuza. This was the epitome of a ninja fight. Like this was the precursor really to what we were going to see going forward as far as like ninja fights go. Because I know like it's like the fight between the Mist brothers was cool and all, but like I don't know, that was more of like almost like a one-sided stomp. So like, but this was like what we were establishing as elite Jonin or elite ninja period. Fighting, like two of them going at each other finally for the first time. So like they pull the stops out for what they could with the animation style and like with the time they had to work with. I think this fight was excellent, especially if we're going to include the Naruto and Sasuke teamwork aspect of it too. I think narratively it's awesome for all three of Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi. And as far as choreography goes, it's to me it's one of the best, especially like specifically in OG Naruto. I feel like it's one of the highlight moments of the series. So, Thunder, what do you got to say?
No, it's great. I mean, you kind of encapsulated it perfectly. I don't want to add on with nonsense. So I agree with everything you said, to be honest, and it really set the precedent for what to expect in the series, because this was like we're in the shoes of the Genin, and we're kind of seeing what this high level Jonin and what we could potentially see from the characters moving forward. So I think it's just great for all those reasons. It just instantly hooks you in. I think this fight is when a lot of people kind of got hooked into the series as well. So, just great stuff. I think this is like a solid fight. I don't know if I can necessarily see it being S, but I feel like A is like a really solid spot for this fight. I'm not
going to lie to you. I thought about putting it because of... I was thinking C or B. I hate saying that because, like...
Oh, man.
No, not because of that. Like, because I think when compared to the fight on the bridge, I know this is like a landmark as far as, I'm going to put it in B. Because I feel like...
I think B's a good spot. Yeah, I think B's a good spot.
Because going on to our next fight, this is kind of like segues into it. I think the fight on the bridge between Sabuza, Kakashi, and Naruto, Sasuke, and Haku, I think is a lot more of one that I think, for me... particularly because, like you said, I think the first fight is what I think a lot of people got hooked on. But for me, like obviously I was hooked in that fight. But for me, I tell this all the time, that the moment I was hooked into Naruto was when Kakashi first pulled out the lightning blade. I was like, bro, I'd never seen a technique like that before. And not even just in Naruto, but like it's like one of those things like, I don't know, I thought it was so cool. I remember watching it for the first time, like, bro, like I'm watching this show like full on now. Like this is the show I'm watching. And Kakashi is that guy. And so I think I like the second fight on the bridge a lot more, specifically narrative speaking, because it's just so...
Gotcha.
It tugs on the heartstrings a lot.
It is a great moment. This is actually like this whole aspect also, I will say this fight does build a lot of Naruto's character as well, like moving forward. And like fighting Zabuza and Haku. build a foundation for like how he approaches a lot of enemies, which a lot of people don't consider. So I agree with you. I think it's a phenomenal fight in the Naruto Sasuke aspect. Seeing the QB, we talked about it, but seeing that happen, that was crazy. I think the lightning blade
and QB is enough to put it in A.
Yeah.
Alone, and then not even that. Again, like the narrative weight that it pulls because it's like the first time. It's really just Naruto like putting himself in an outsider's perspective because he's not like for him. Like the idea of ninjas being tools or whatnot, that doesn't exist to him, and he's just completely. It's a whole new concept that he just doesn't agree with, and it's funny because like he doesn't accept it. He just makes a new way of life. He's like, I'm not going to live like that because of Zabuza and Haku and the encounter they had with them. So
no, it sets a precedent. Like the whole you're used or being used. Is something that follows through from, the original Naruto to Shippuden. Even like, whatever your opinion on the Madara like twist is, that's still present there. So it's like, this is like a narrative that Kishimoto keeps consistent with the rest of the series and just adds on to it with all these other complex ideas. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So moving on, now they kind of skipped the sound ninja versus the team leaf, which I regrettably don't have in here, but I'll make an honorable mention. I'd say that one is a good fight. I think that would probably be my first C level fight because it's pretty simple. Even though the stakes are high, because if the sound ninja win, the Sasuke's might die and Sakura might die and Naruto might die. But the fact that like Neji, Lee, and everybody else and team Shikacho is coming to save the rescue, it really gives you that first feeling of like, okay, even though that the shooting exams, it's like an all for like everyone's for themselves, every team's for themselves. It gives you that sense of like they're still Team Leaf, like they're still from the same village. So like I remember thinking that as a kid, like bro, aren't they like supposed to be like on separate sides in this thing? Like isn't it supposed to be every team for themselves? But no, in this fight they literally like just hey, like you're picking on us, you're picking on our boys. Like what's going on? Like you want to square up? Like so. I did like that fight, so as an honorable mention, I'd probably give that my first C tier fight. So, but going on to Sasuke versus Orochimaru in the Forest of Death, I thought that was great. Again,
I love this fight.
It's a precursor for Sasuke, like going forward in a way. It's like a precedent because, like, I mean, this is someone that's. I mean, we thought Zabuza was tough to beat. This man is like on a completely other level, and yet he's just here toying with Naruto and Sasuke. It's so crazy. Looking back at it, that like Sasuke was not. Well, yeah, at first he was afraid, but then he got his second win back, and it's like he's just going full force against someone who is just so many tiers above him at this point.
He went from kind of like from like survivalist. He pretty much goes from like just straight up surviving to just it's almost a pivotal point because he's like, if I can't confront this demon in front of me, there's no way I'm going to be able to beat Itachi. There's no way I'm going to be able to fight him. And it's like he kind of has that moment. And you even see like traces of that when he's fighting Haku and Zabuza. He's like, this is what Jonin are like. And these are like, he has to overcome this because, for as much tragedy as he's had, he hasn't gone through like these ordeals, like experienced this much combat. So, and the fight itself is beautiful. I will say that too, regardless of the fact that like, Sasuke was never going to win that fight. It's still a good fight, especially at the point you're watching it, because we don't know about Orochimaru. We don't know how strong he is. We're thinking Sasuke is going to like, maybe he's going to do something. And you find out all these things. You're like, wow, man, like he had no chance. But the fight itself is just so beautifully animated. It was really like Sasuke's moment. So I like this fight a lot. Like I'm right there with you.
And on the narrative side of it, like this was the moment that Sasuke started looking at Naruto as a serious, like, this kid's packing something, because he had no fear going towards Orochimaru, and like in a way that influenced Sasuke more than he even cared to admit, because I was like, okay, like if Naruto can muster up the courage to go toe to toe with this man, like I should be able to too. And I think that's where the friendly rivalry started to really pick up heat, because obviously we saw glimpses of that in the Land of Waves, but it really came to a head at this point, because that's when like all the stops were being put out against someone who is so many tiers above what they've encountered before. And so I think that was when Sasuke was really starting to like see Naruto as like a competitor in a way. Yeah. So I'd probably put this one in B. Like I said, I don't want to throw big letters, but I think again I think I really enjoy a lot of the OG Naruto fights. It's like, and I think this one is absolutely worthy of being in the B tier. So
Yeah.
next one is Sasuke versus Yoroi. I'll say this is in D. I'll go ahead and say right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. It's like there's a combo move. It kind of displays like the curse mark a little bit. It's interesting because you do get to see traces of what Sasuke does in the Chunin exams, where he's utilizing his Sharingan and copying, jutsu and movements. He does this from Lee. But at the end of the day, like, it's just not that crazy. It's like, he kind of shoves Yoroi off of him and does Alliance Barrage. It's not really that insane. There's not really this aspect. It's just like, okay, round one of Chunin exams.
Yeah, when it comes to half narrative, half choreography, it's more choreography than it is like a narrative way. So the choreography is definitely there, but that's really all it is at the end of the day. So but because it's a cool fight, because it's Sasuke, I'm gonna give it.
Yeah, I think D tier is honestly just gonna be a lot of like the cool moments.
Yeah.
Versus like, yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Zaku versus Shino. Look, man, I have no qualms in saying that Shino was the guy in part 1. Oh my god,
him.
I have no problem saying that. Like, if I'm not gonna lie, I think Shino might have been my favorite character, if not the second favorite character, next to Kakashi in part 1. Because of like certain like fights like this, I was like, bro, this kid's like, I feel like this kid could stop everyone in the room, maybe aside from Gaara, but like at the time anyway. But I think this is a D tier. I don't know why I'm even debating on it, because like I love Shino, but there's not much to this fight. It's just Shino being cool, but I do think that him blowing off Zaku's arms was freaking crazy.
Yeah, it was just like, this fight does like Shino's cool, but I definitely think Shino like has a better fight in part 1, in my opinion. This fight's like, we already saw. I think it's like a good like IQ moment for Shino. It's obviously you kind of see like the Aburame clan, like what they can do. But again, like, it's just not too crazy compared to like a lot of other fights, even in part 1. It's just, so I don't think it's like that insane, but it's like, it's a cool fight. Like, I definitely think, and we'll obviously like rework the tiers because, obviously some are going to be better than other. We're just kind of listing them off. But yeah, I agree pretty much with what you're saying.
Kankuro versus whatever this guy's name is.
F, honestly, it's not even a fight. It's like, it's not, he literally grabs him and he's like, oh, I'm not the puppet. It just kills him, to be honest.
I mean, I give it a fight because like it introduced the new concept of puppets, but unfortunately puppets aren't really that great going forward.
What's your name? Saucer,
Yeah, Saucer, that's true. But again, puppet masters don't get a whole lot of screen time in general, so it's like one of those things.
Yeah.
I want to say it's cool, but in the long run, they don't do much, so... Yeah, so we have our first F, look at that, and now we have our second F, which goes on to...
Yeah, I'm glad we agree. Just, honestly, like, this one, I feel like we could just say, we could talk, like, this fight, I feel like we could just keep it, give you an explanation. It's just not,
One thing I will say is I wish it could have been better, because I hate the fact that I have to hate Sakura. Like, I don't like that I have to dislike Sakura, you know what I'm saying? I'm a little bit indifferent towards her, because I just wish she would have gotten written better. Which is odd because a lot of people in Japan love Sakura. I know a lot of people in the U.S. like hate her to death. So I hate that I hate Sakura. So, but I will say that. Tamari versus Tenten, bro.
This fight is off screen in the manga.
I know. I don't know why.
That's so funny.
I'm almost tempted to put it in C tier because I think Tamari in part 1's a legend. And I think I'm okay with putting it in C because of how quickly she just establishes herself as a force to be reckoned with. And that ending shot with her, like, putting Tenten on her fan, bro.
Yeah.
Dude, that's freaking brutal. I do like Tamari in part 1, so that might be putting her in C just because of that, but I think...
Yeah, I might say D, but, like, I get what you're saying because, like, the Sand Trio are, like, hyped up. You know what I'm saying? It's like a build-up type of thing. And you're kind of thinking, oh, Tenten's on Lee and Neji's squad. Yeah. She's got to be fire. And then, like, this is one of her only fights in the show, so it's like, oh...
Yeah, exactly. So... yeah, I think, and because it's so quick, I probably could put it in D, but I think there's a difference between making it quick because it's a one-sided stomp in a cool way, as opposed to just being like quick and not being entertaining. And I compared to Kankuro and the Ino and Sakura fight, I can actually rewatch this fight and not like have any real problems with it. So I'll put it in C. Shikamaru versus Keen. I'm actually okay with putting this in C too. I love any.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I agree. He's just so intellectual. And it's so great. It's so fun to see him work.
Yeah.
So I'll put that in C. Naruto versus Kiba. I'm actually tempted to put this in C as well, but I
agree. I agree. Actually,
the reason I would actually contend with it being in D is because the pacing of it is a little bit off. Like it's slow at certain points. But for the most part, it's so great to me because narratively speaking, it's the first time that everybody in the room, specifically the Genin like 9 or Genin 12, are finally seeing that Naruto, who was this kid that they were always making fun of, actually beats one of the more like physically stronger Genin, and like, oh, okay, this kid's something to keep on a radar. You know what I'm saying? So, I love it. I love everything about it. Narratively speaking, the choreography, it's there, but
it's hit or it's like it's all right.
Yeah. Neji and Hinata.
I love this fight. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know about B tier though. I probably gonna.
I think like high C to be honest.
Because like Naruto, like everyone thought Hinata was this like submissive, weak-ish, fighter, but here, and she was, honestly. I mean, let's be honest. Like up until Naruto gave her that speech, she was just like not in a way of saying that she was always weak, but she just didn't have the guts to do it. And as soon as Naruto said something to her, she's like, all right, like we're going for it. Like, and she had no holds barred. Like she is on point, just like, all right, I'm gonna lose more than likely, but I don't care. Like I'm not gonna be seen as this weak woman in front of everybody, especially Naruto. So I thought it was great.
I think honestly, like just the spectacle of two gentle fist users clashing does like elevate this fight. It's also really satisfying it wasn't satisfying, but the verbal beatdown that she put on Hinata was arguably like, if you guys haven't seen that fight in a minute, he like goes in on her. He's like, all right, you're twitching your left eye because of this. And it's insane. The psychological abuse is actually crazy. So
I was like, honestly, I was like, did they have like a psychology course in the academy where Neji just was like, bro, he understands. Crazy. Yeah, I totally agree that because when you're watching it, you're like, bro, like you're almost like your heart's like going fast. Like, bro, he's calling her out. Something fierce.
Yes.
So yeah, I totally agree. Going on to Rock Lee and Gaara, bro, like, no one better even come at me putting an S tier. This was the fight.
Yeah, enough said.
Oh my God. I'm telling you right now, I got chills. I still get chills. Okay, so full disclosure, my dad does not like anime whatsoever, but I showed him this fight and he was 100% invested in it. That says something.
Wow, that's the yeah.
So like, and when Lee landed that first kick on Gaara in everyone's face, bro, I get chills every single time. I watch reaction videos of Naruto for people watching Naruto for the first time, like almost all the time. And when they get to this fight and they see Lee do that little flip kick and actually injure Gaara for the first time, their mouths drop to the freaking floor. It is so crazy to see. So yeah, I'm sorry. Like I could brag on this fight all freaking day and never get tired of it. It's so great. Thunder, you want to say anything about it?
It's just so, like, from the animation to, like, the taijutsu to, like, the speed aspect, Lee was being hyped up as, like, this different animal. It's just, this play has, like, withstood the testament of time, to be honest. And it's, a lot of people, I will say, I think misconstrued a lot of narratives about, like, the whole hard work aspect in Naruto and, like, how that pertains to Naruto himself. But I will say, it's very satisfying to see, like, this hard work fighter, shock everybody, perform amazing against Gaara. And, granted, people will be like, oh, Gaara, like, walked away with no issues. But, like, let's be real here. Like, Gaara was not ready for this.
Yeah, I was like, Gaara had a look on his face the entire time after Lee took his weights off. Like, bro, like, okay, I might be in danger here. Like,
yeah, he was like, is this dude even human? So there's definitely an aspect to it. But it's definitely, it's very rewarding to see. And, like, the message that, what Lee conveys in this fight definitely transmutes to Naruto as well.
And when the fight slows down with the flashbacks, it's actually entertaining. Like, it's not one of those things like Naruto's fight with Kiba that slows down and it kind of like, it's a little bit boring. But with Lee, it's just so captivating and it really...
Nobody hates Lee. Nobody.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't hate on this fight whatsoever. It's great all around. I have no problems with it. Dosu and Gaara, bro, like... To this day, I hate the Dosu guy off screen. Oh, well,
yeah. This is like easy F. Like, I didn't even see it.
Only because of what they did to this character. Like, honestly, the fight itself probably could have been pretty good. Like having Dosu and Gaara go at each other before Gaara enters his like Tale state, and then I know the anime retelling in Shippuden kind of does a little bit more justice, but for the most part, it's really just like an off-screen kill. And I thought it would have been a whole lot better. I thought Dosu was someone to keep around a little bit longer, but I guess not. Hayate and Baki, again with Dosu, like it's a good fight as far as the anime retelling. And if we hadn't got the anime retelling, I probably would have put it in F. But because Hayate never gets another moment. And I actually did like Hayate back in the day. I thought he was a pretty chill dude. He was like freaking deathly sick and whatnot. I thought he was a pretty chill dude. Thanks to the Shippuden retelling, I'm going to put it in D. But again, like with Dosu, he kind of happened off screen and didn't get as much time as I feel like we should have gotten with him. But it's okay for what it is. I think it's just more choreography than anything. Naruto and Neji. Okay, so... Admittedly, I had to bring this up because the thumbnail might ensue that I think that this fight is god tier. And look, that was just to get y'all's attention. I do love this fight. I'm actually probably one of the the few people that actually enjoys this fight thoroughly. The choreography is, if I do a ratio between like thematic to choreography, I would honestly say this is like a 60-40. 40% choreography, like 60% like narrative weight. And I think the choreography is definitely there, especially in the beginning parts of it. And it kind of does slow down for a second with the flashbacks, whatever. But again, like with Lee's flashbacks, it's very interesting and captivating, and it gives you a very clear perspective on how Neji came to be this cynical, destiny-driven character. And so I think for the most part, I do like it. The hard work aspect kind of does get thrown out the window, which I do hate. But you could argue that Naruto did still prove that hard work, overcomes natural talent with the hard work he had to put into, somewhat mastering the Kyuubi chakra enough to actually make a difference between his current strength and the strength he needed to beat Neji. Thunder, you got anything to say about this fight?
I mean, I like this fight. The build-up was great. The fight itself is kind of, it's all right. I won't say it's like the craziest thing because, like, it's kind of just Neji, like, beating around Naruto and them having this dialogue. But I will say, this isn't like, I think the message this fight conveys is one I like a lot, and I think gets misconstrued a lot with the whole destiny aspect. I could make a whole video on this. I'm sure you could too, with like the, how this pertains to Naruto and later in Shippuden and stuff like that, which I do like. But I think it's just such an interesting, because it's like you kind of have to separate the message and like what this fight's conveying versus like the two people beating up each other. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm trying to do that because like I do like the message, but I think as a fight, like it's all right. Like the best part of this fight, in my opinion, is like the last like 10% when like Naruto gets the Kyuubi's chakra and like actually pressing Neji. But again, like, as a fight on its own and like everything surrounding it, even in terms of like the build-up, I thought it was like all right. I don't think it's on the level of like Sasuke versus Gaara or anything like that, like compared to like the big matchup. So I'm kind of like, I think it's good, maybe okay, not the best.
I'll say I'll probably give it a C. As much as I feel like I'm hyping it up to be a B, I think it's high C. Because of certain things, like again, like the hard work is kind of like thrown out the window for it. But like you said, I feel like the best moments are in the last 15% of it, and that to me, I feel like that 15% does make up for like a lot of why I like this video or like this fight. So I'm okay with putting it in C, but I feel like I'm like it's like right on the cusp of B to me. So yeah. Shikamaru versus Tamari. I have no problem saying this is A. I'm almost tempted because it's like, I think it's like Shikamaru's landing moment. I'm almost tempted to put it in S because, bro, I was completely taken back the entire fight. And I remember like thinking when the fight got wrapped up and he caught Tamari in the shadow position, explaining how he did it, I was like jumping out of my seat thinking like, bro, this how? Like, I just witnessed chess in Naruto. Like it's so crazy to me. And like I said, we were kind of going into this fight that Shikamaru didn't have a chance against someone who was, again, like we established earlier, was like a freaking force to be reckoned with in part one. And seeing him just completely just playing the long game and just waiting to outsmart Tamari, it was everything I could ask for in a Naruto fight.
Yeah, I think this fight is definitely where everybody just liked Shikamaru a lot. You know, because it's like that. It's a very high IQ fight. I will say, like, you know, as a fight itself, he is kind of like sitting back and there's a bit strategy to it. But then again, that's like Shikamaru as a fighter. You know what I mean? It's like very interesting because he's so different. That's why he's like a lot of people's top 5. Is a very interesting character. There's a lot of nuance and strategy. It's like a chess game with him. So even like the pacing of the fight could be attributed to the fight itself because he's purposely waiting for the sun to go down. So if you feel like, oh, this is taking a while, well, maybe that could be like kind of the point. So I don't really think it's a good fight. I won't say I would personally put it in A. I think it's a B. I think it would go in B for me. But like, it is a phenomenal fight. So like, I could see like how it could get up there.
Well, I know people are gonna be in the comments like, well, this has no choreography or like narrative, like, you know, weight added to it. But like, I think the fact that the fight's that great, in spite of that, is what for me what makes it so. And the fact that he gave up too, I'm like, I remember like I said earlier, I was jumping out of my seat when he got the shadow possession. Then he said he gave up. Then I sat right back down. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. But yeah, I like it though. It was great. Gaara versus Sasuke, bro. I'm telling you, that was like one of Sasuke's shining moments. I feel like
this gotta be. This is a great fight.
I almost want to put it in S, bro. I ain't gonna lie, but I
feel like high A. This fight was so built up, man. From like, you know, I mean, maybe like not that crazy, but you know, Sasuke and Gaara, like from the minute they saw each other, they had like, you kind of got the vibe that like, okay, they're kind of, you know, they're having a bit back and forth and stuff like that. And you see Gaara get hyped up and stuff like that. And then like the more the series progresses, like Gaara specifically targets Sasuke, and there's a bit of weight to it because like, we just saw Sasuke get clammed by B. Or not B. Well, that happens too. But, yeah, that does happen too. Lee, he gets, like, slammed. So you're like, okay, what chance does he really have? And then, like, you know, he's still performing Lee's taijutsu, which is hype. But you're like, dude, this isn't enough. And then he busts out Chidori, which, for me, cemented Sasuke as one of my favorite characters. Well, I was like,
go ahead.
It blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, 3 things I was going to bring up because, like, you kind of just touched on it. One, okay, so I remember watching it for the first time and, like, thinking, like, what's Sasuke going to really do? And then he disappears like Lee. And I remember the first thing I thought was like, no freaking way. And like, I got chills when like Gaara remembered Lee. He's like, oh, he's fast, just like that other one. I'm like, bro, all right. And then, like you say, he pulls out the Chidori. And I remember like getting so hyped because of the explanation from Guy on how Chidori even came about. That like the fact that like it's Kakashi's, you know, the only jutsu in Kakashi's arsenal they didn't copy, and explaining the alternate name, the lightning blade, the fact that it came from Kakashi being able to cut lightning in half before it could touch the ground. As a kid, that blew my mind. Like, bro, like Gaara's done for. When I first heard that, I'm like, there ain't no way Gaara's gonna be able to stop a jutsu like that. And so, like they said, when he pulled it out, and you heard Gaara scream, like again, this whole fight was just all kinds of crazy. It was so built up.
It's great,
and it's great, and build up is a great like is a tough thing to follow up on, and they delivered in this fight.
Yeah, it's just honestly like. It's just hype, man. I think it's cement. He does so much cool stuff, and just like you're kind of like, oh man, now like Sasuke is like mini Kakashi.
Yeah,
Kakashi, you know.
Going on to Hiruzen and Orochimaru, this fight had me on the edge of my seat. I'm not gonna lie.
I love this fight. Like, it's so good.
The stakes were like high as they could ever been by this point in the series. Like, I mean, I don't know. I remember thinking like here. I mean, I don't know, man. I can't even talk right now because it's so.
I could add to this. I will say first and foremost, you know, this fight sets like because you know Orochimaru was hyped up at this point. Like Kakashi looks at this dude, imagines himself getting decapitated. Yeah, he's like, okay, I guess I'm not him. And it's very fascinating because this fight really also sets a precedent. And one of the Anbu like mentioned that like what Hokage combat is and what it means to be Hokage, because you're kind of like thinking about it. You're like, okay. How, you know, even with like, what does it mean to be Hokage? Like, how strong do you really have to be? And I think this fight does do a good example of displaying that. And it carries a lot of weight because not only is the fight cool because you get Edo Tensei, like Hashirama, Tobirama, you get to see all this unique jutsu. I will say the anime amplifies this fight a lot more than the manga. And the manga, it's good, but the anime, man, oh my god, the animation, all this stuff they added, it made it like 10 times better. So I will say, like, if you're going up the anime, this fight just got elevated. There's so many cool aspects. There's like a moment where like Tobirama's Edo Tensei like tries to drown Hiruzen to all this great stuff. So it really tells you what it means to be Hokage. And I will say what this fight does moving forward, right? Because it essentially propels the plot because Orochimaru is forced to change all his plans because Hiruzen had taken his arms. Like this fight essentially changed and like shifted what the rest of part 1 was and what early Shippuden was due to that. Like, so the way, it's not even as if like it's a one and done. No, the way and impact of this fight can be felt for the rest of the series.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and as we're talking about choreography and narrative input, like weight to it, this is all that and more. Like, it's all that good and some. So yeah, I want to put this one in A because I think it's like it's a landmark. It's a landmark fight for sure. So I'm gonna put that in A. Shino versus Kankuro. I am okay with putting this in C. I'll say right off the bat because I think it's a really entertaining fight. It's not so quick, but it's quick enough to like it understands like the point of it. It the fight itself knows like what it's meant to do. It's just meant to buy some time, but also give that payoff from the final rounds section because Kankuro forfeited. So like like, I know there were some fans when they saw that. I guarantee there were some fans disappointed because they wanted to see Shino go to work. So, yeah, I'm glad we got this fight. I'm glad. And Shino pulled it out. Pulled that one up. He was really clever. And, yeah, I love this fight.
I agree.
Naruto versus Gaara. I feel like I'd get a lot of flack if I didn't put this in A. I almost don't want to because, I'm not going to lie, I feel like I like Sasuke and Gaara versus more than I do like Naruto.
I want to add too, I wish like whoever made this tier list put Sasuke and Gaara in the forest as a separate fight because I love that. The dynamic of seeing like transform Gaara. I don't know if it's like bundled into this. I guess it is, but I think that also is a very interesting dynamic that's there with like both kind of having to validate their own existence to, each other almost like as being like opponents to one another for like higher purposes. So, a tangent. This fight is interesting because it's all right. Like it's, there is some like strategy to it with Naruto fighting Gaara and whatnot. He obviously, has his like, he pretty much is like put in a position to where he has to protect his comrades. Like he's the one in that position now. So, and he's gone through like this training to like, master the Kyuubi, or not master Kyuubi's chakra, but he has like learned to tap into that. So there's a lot of aspects to it. And obviously, I love the foil between Naruto and Gaara. I think it's done amazingly in part 1. Gaara's actually one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite in part 1, for those who didn't know. But so that's like, I don't want to be biased. Like I feel like as a fight, because you also get to see Gamma Bunta versus Shikaku, which is also really neat. So I feel like B is fine, but like, there are elements that could necessarily raise it to A. You know what I mean? So I think I would do that.
Because like, I'm not gonna lie, it blew my mind when he transformed to the Nine Tails, and I was like, I remember thinking,
that was crazy.
I was like, all right, they're pulling out all the stops, and then like the ending scene where like Naruto talking to Jutsus, I think it's one of my more favorite.
They're both done. He's like, well, you gotta hear me. We're both on the ground.
So you have no choice but to hear me. Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely an A tier fight. Kakashi versus Itachi.
Oh,
bro, I'm putting that in S. Like to build up a character like how Itachi was built up, and then to deliver with him pretty much just fondling every Jonin there. I mean, it's one of the you can't.
He came out swinging. It was like because it was we knew about Itachi. We just didn't know how strong he was. And this fight is built up with the idea that Orochimaru's like, I can't beat him. That guy, forget it. That dream's dead. Yeah. And then you see what he does against like Kakashi, right? This juggernaut, all this crazy stuff. And then you got Kakashi being like, we got no chance. Nada, we're done. So it really set the tone for how strong Itachi was. And it does it against a great character like Kakashi as well. And it doesn't really it alludes to a lot of future things, like we're talking about overusing his eyes and whatnot. And granted, there's not too much that happens, but you just get the sense of how intimidating Itachi is as a fighter with his like exploding clones. And then Tsukuyomi, you're like, bro, what? So I like this fight a lot just for what it sets. It's Itachi, who doesn't love Itachi? Exactly. You know what I mean?
There ain't nobody out there that can tell me that they like when Kakashi was caught Tsukuyomi the entire time, they were like freaking cringing because of how painful it. Like it's just the weight of like the itself. I'm like, bro, is it ever gonna end, bro? I felt so bad for Kakashi. I ain't gonna lie to you, but like even with me being a Kakashi Tar, like this, he got whooped, and the fact that like Itachi had like minimal effort on his part, it was crazy. So yeah, it was really well built up, and like like the fight between Sasuke and Gaara, the build up paid off. It was paid off in spades. So that's not an easy thing to do. The fight with Sasuke and Itachi the first time around, it's all right.
To stop.
The interaction's great. It was finally nice to see for the first time, and we got more of a backstory within this fight, like why Itachi did what he did, or at least the start of it. You know what I'm saying? We got like the snippet of what Itachi's cruelty like meant.
Yeah,
extended to. So it's all right. Looking back at it, like I feel as though I don't know.
I like what you said. You said interaction. It's very it's very satisfying to see like Sasuke, this cool, calm, and collected character, just blow up in terms of anger. Mm-hmm. But like it's not a fight. You know what I mean? It's more like he throws a Chidori, and it just really demonstrates the distance between Itachi and himself. So I would say C. Like I'm agreeing with you.
With C, because like I feel as though like the narrative weight of the fight is there, right? There's no choreography. Yeah. There's barely any choreography, but like except for Chidori, the whole scene with him tearing up the hotel with Chidori is cool, but that's it. Yeah, that's really all it is. And then so like narratively, it works as a fight, sort of. Yeah, fight. I say fight, but in parentheses. So yeah, I agree. I put it in C. I don't because of who it is. I'll put it in C. And then if there was any other character I felt like that weren't as popular, I'd probably put it in. Yeah, but C's fine. The three-way deadlock showdown, bro. That fight, I don't think that's
phenomenal.
I think that's a fight that's very underappreciated or very.
It's so good.
I don't see a whole lot of people giving a whole lot of love to it. Having said that,
cool.
Yeah. Having said that, though, I probably gonna put it in B.
I agree.
I don't think it's as crazy as because like even back in the day when I was first watching it the first time, I couldn't really imagine. I couldn't see Jiraiya and Tsunade being killed by Orochimaru. Like if it's 2v1, I was like, to me, I felt like there was no way that Orochimaru was really going to be able to kill both of them, especially with Tsunade just being introduced. So like, there's no way they're going to kill her off, like right as they're introducing her. And obviously the tension between the Naruto and Kabuto was cool, but I mean, honestly, if I had to pick a landmark from that fight, it would have to be the Rasengan for the first time. So. And like we're talking about build up, I think that the fact that it's in B is largely due to the payoff from the Rasengan, because the Rasengan training in this arc is probably one of the best training arcs in the entire series. So to see that being paid off finally in the fight and the situation, and in a very clever way from Naruto, really cements like 85% of why it's in B for me.
I'll say this because I agree with you. I'm a little different in the sense that like the summons are what highlight this for me. When the three-way deadlock itself. Right. But I'm a fan of Gamabunsa versus Shikaku. Yeah. So just like in the anime, like when you see these three summon, like the music going, it's unbelievable, and it's just very cool to see the three summons just like going at each other. Uh-huh. Everything that follows is all right. I just think this spectacle is really impressive. Like I just enjoy seeing it. Because it's so different, you're used to these grounded fights, and then you see like these three Sanin who are built up, and you see what that is. It's like these guys are like and this is done when they're nerfed too.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
What might they do when they're at full power? So that's where I'm at. But I generally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. So now we're gonna go on to the Naruto and Sasuke fight on the bridge. I don't have much qualms with putting this in A. I gotta be honest with you because of who it is. I feel like I probably would have initially put it in B because of it's kind of inconclusive. But the fact that we finally had gotten to this point when we was being hyped up, and for a fight that was being built up, and even if it was meant to be inconclusive, I still think, if I remember correctly, I was very hyped the entire fight. I remember rewatching this fight, even as the Sasuke retrieval arc kept going on, I still went back to watch this fight because of how crazy it was for the build up for the final fight that they had. So I think that. Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I agree because I agree with everything you're saying. I was gonna add to this because you hit the nail on the head with like we do finally get to see a bit of Naruto versus Sasuke, and I'll say this fight does a good job of like setting the tone. This fight makes you feel very uneasy because like you know, it's like the vibe isn't there. This kind of different from a lot of fights. It's like these aren't really, you're not getting the vibe that these are really teammates. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it cements that. Like, there's a point in the fight where like Sasuke puts a current over Naruto and starts beating him up under it. It's like the funniest thing. It's crazy. It's just, so it's like I definitely enjoy that, and you definitely get to see a lot of Sasuke's emotions off of, you know, the Gaara situation, what he witnessed from Naruto, Itachi blow up, and you know the ramifications of this fight are that change the series forever. You know, he ends up leaving the village. So I definitely enjoyed this fight and what it represents. I think the fight itself too, I will say the one thing I could say is like it leaves you on a cliffhanger because you're like you want to see what happens when Chidori clashes with Rasengan, and that's the one thing where I'm like, but other than that, no, I did enjoy this fight a lot.
Well, to compensate for that though, we get the scene of Kakashi just throwing them, and then we get to also compensate. We get that shot of the water tank being completely destroyed and see the look on.
Iconic.
Like so, like for any of y'all seen that meme out there that says this is why the show's called Naruto. Yeah, that it's always fun to see. So yeah, I agree. I'm okay with putting it A because narratively it's amazing, and then obviously the choreography is there. So it's definitely it's best of both worlds. I think it does. It encapsulates what all we wanted and more. So I'm okay with putting it in A tier. Choji versus Jirobo. Here's the thing. I'm going to get a lot of hate on these. Personally, aside from Choji and Neji's fight, and even them, I'm not the biggest fan of the Sound 4 fights. I gotta be honest. It may have just been because I knew that. Look, I think as a kid, I wasn't very appreciative of them. I really wanted just to hurry up and get into Naruto and Sasuke. And as a kid, could y'all blame me? Like, honest to God, like, I think in the back of our minds, we were all... And now, don't get me wrong, I love all these characters, right? I didn't want any of these characters to die. But, okay, actually, you know what? I retract that statement. I loved Shikamaru's fight. So, we're going to Choji and Jirobo. I felt some type of way when I really thought Choji was going to die. So, like... I'm putting it in C because I think the fight itself was pretty good. But I just remember as a kid, I just was wanting to hurry up to get to Naruto and Sasuke. And that's not even a shade on Choji. I felt that way about every fight. So, like, I don't know.
I think the ending of this fight bumps it up a little bit because Choji has that, like, I'm him moment.
Yeah.
After taking the red pill and stuff like that. I was one of the people who was like, yo, is Choji gonna die? Like, this is crazy. Like, what's going on? So I did enjoy this fight, if not for the fact that with each of these characters, you didn't really know who was coming out. I think the fights did a good job. And, you know, I'm a big fan of that. So I think C is fine because I think out of all of the other South 4 fights is one of the weaker ones. Mm-hmm. But I think the ending of this fight definitely with Choji's like, I'm 100 times stronger, Bolo, you know, because Choji had taken no W. So seeing Choji kind of have this performance was crazy to everybody with the music going. So I think the ending of this fight is the biggest thing in my opinion.
Yeah. Going on to Neji and Kidomaru, I am going to put this in B tier because I love me some Neji, and I do think this is actually one of the more entertaining fights because they had to be really technical about it. It wasn't like Choji and Jirobo's where it was like who can hit harder. It's like one of those things like Neji had to be very thorough about how he approached each like ability that Kidomaru was throwing out. So and like you said, the ending like similar to Choji, like Neji had like a I'm him moment, but in a different way. And it really calculates like the influence that Naruto had on Neji at the end of the fight.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I'm glad you said that because you see a lot of that with what he says to Kidomaru and like his dialogue towards it. And I agree with you. Like, it's very interesting because you're kind of used to seeing Neji as this dominant force. Mm-hmm. So kind of seeing him on a back foot with like an opponent who counters him to pretty much at every turn. It's very satisfying. It's very good to see. And I like this fight a lot too because this is the one Sound 4 fight that's like uncontested 1v1. Neji is the only one who actually like won his fight without, you know, granted Choji did win his 1v1. But, like, listen, Neji wasn't popping chakra pills. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
No, for sure.
It's very satisfying to see. Like, I know this is an anime edition. This wasn't in the manga. But, for example, when Neji did 128 palms, that was the craziest thing to me. I was like, there's more? I thought 64 was the limit. So, and even the ending with like Neji taking damage just to like, pour his chakra into Kidomaru. I think this fight's phenomenal. I love it for so many reasons.
Oh, me too. And like I said, I was really getting like, again, when the hair went down over his face, I went, bro, Neji's not dying. Like, I love Choji, but I was like, when I really thought Neji bit the bullet, I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
The coldest character.
I was like,
no reason
for it. And the thing is, like, you weren't expecting that. You weren't expecting to like Neji so much. Because you spent so much time like really hating this guy until, Naruto, gave him one, and like you're like, okay, no, Neji's like I really like. And then because I don't know, one of the best Neji moments to me, because it gets brought up in Shippuden before Naruto fights Sasuke in Shippuden. He's like, sometimes your eyes are even better than mine. To Naruto, I'm like, bro, that one was a landmark speech to me, and I always it. So. Yeah, Neji's great. I gotta be honest with you. It's crazy a fight, but I don't like Kiba. I gotta be 100 with you. I really
It's funny you say that because like in Shippuden, he just became so much more unlikable for some reason. He's just like, I don't know what it is. Like I feel like I don't want to like detract from Part 1 Kiba because like he's kind of cool in Part 1, but like. It's something about his Shippuden self that like there's an arrogance there, and I'm like, dude,
you know who you're Yamcha from Dragon Ball. Like, I mean, maybe not to that extent, but like that's the vibe I get when I'm watching Kiba and Naruto. I just feel like he's Yamcha from Dragon Ball. I don't know why. I don't know. It's one of those things like I want to like Kiba because I think that the dog aspect. I love the dog aspect. I love Akamaru.
Yeah, three-headed wolf was great in this fight. Yeah. It was super cool.
So that alone, I think I'm putting it in C. I almost wanted to put it in D because I don't like Kiba all that much, but because I do like Akamaru and I do like the dog aspect, I think I'll put it in C. I gotta be honest with you, Sakon's annoying to me though. That's another reason why I just don't like this fight a whole lot is because Sakon's really annoying.
Yeah,
I just don't like him a whole lot. Shikamaru versus Tayuya. I love this fight, but I gotta be honest with you, I don't feel like it's as entertaining as Tamari versus Shikamaru. I know that might lead to some like contention, but I don't know.
Nah.
Go ahead.
I would agree with you. My main thing with this fight, I think it's a great fight because it displays Shikamaru's intelligence. I think it's very like kind of like apples to oranges and what you prefer. I think it's a great fight, and I think it's it does well at displaying like Shikamaru's intellect. It does a lot of what if you like Shikamaru, you're gonna like this fight, obviously.
Yeah.
You just never really get that like feeling from the climax. Like it's a very big struggle, but I will say this fight doesn't do a good job of keeping the tension because you really don't know if Shikamaru's gonna win because he kind of put his whole gambit into this last strategy. So and I think Tayuya's ability is really cool as well. I think she has a diverse jutsu, which also makes this fight interesting. So yeah. I think, it does add for a bit of... There's a lot of good stuff to this fight. So I don't think like saying it's not as good as, or if you have the opinion it's not as good as like Shikamaru versus Tamari's fine. But I still think it's a good fight. Like I like this fight,
Maybe I'll put it in B. I think it's good enough. I think the reason why I like the other one better is because of the characters that are... Because it's Shikamaru and Tamari, you know what I'm saying? Because they're in it for the long haul, you know what I'm saying? Hint.
Yeah.
So like I think that's why I like that fight a lot better because of the characters that are involved in it, rather than this fight. And now we're going to Kibimaru. Now, because they don't have Gaara or the Lee and Gaara like separately versus Kibimaru, we're just gonna like talk about them both, and then just like rank. Because I could probably put this in the same tier, and it'd be perfectly fine. I think this is like an A tier fight to me, especially if we're combining the entire thing. Like, first of all, Lee coming in when you weren't really expecting, like, out of all the people I was expecting to come into this arc, Lee was the last person I really thought was gonna come up here. Because like the thing is like if we're gonna backtrack this a little bit, I loved the fight. I love the moment when Lee is contemplating on whether or not he wants to get the surgery, and Guy gives him his pep talk and says that like, bro, on the 1 in a million chance that something's going to go wrong, like, I'll die right along with you. Like, I remember, like, watching that episode and, like, almost tearing up because of, like, who it is. And so, like, the fact that we got this payoff from the surgery and Lee going to town on Kibimaru and the Drunken Fist too, bro, that alone I feel like is going to put it in an A tier. But I think it deserves to spot in A tier because of that. And then Gaara coming in, and I mentioned this a long time ago to a friend of mine, but if you're watching Naruto for the first time, when it first aired, and you're watching it like week by week, you spend so much time away from Gaara that when Gaara shows up, you lose your mind. And to see what he's actually capable of, and him being in a calm, submissive state and still like handling Kiyomaru, I think it's all kinds of crazy. And that's Saint Tsunami, bro.
Yeah.
Thunder, you want to say it? I've been rambling on this.
No, I definitely, I'll say this. Like, I think I enjoyed Gaara versus Kiyomaru quite a bit more than Kiyomaru versus Lee. I think the Drunken Fist is cool. I think it's entertaining. It's makes for some cool spectacle at the Taijutsu. But it is very like refreshing to see Lee again. Because we don't know where he's at. We thought he wasn't going to be back in the series at all.
Yeah.
So it's very refreshing. I think the Gaara fight is highlights it because you kind of Gaara's a juggernaut, right?
Yeah.
Just seeing him and like you mentioned, he's in a different state. He's not like bloodlusted. He's very calm and stuff like that. And I think it's nice to see Gaara kind of met with somebody like him with this unstoppable force that can't really be stopped. And it just makes for an interesting dynamic. And he's almost fighting a diluted version of himself and Sasuke. And he's kind of met in, he's almost looking at a mirror in some regards, just due to like how Kiyomaru is and how he's living. I'm not saying Kiyomaru and Gaara are the same or not, whatnot, but I'm saying, they're a lot of these like younger characters do sometimes share traits with how they're thinking and stuff like that. That is a point in the series. So I did like that fight a lot. Seeing Kiyomaru's curse mark is very satisfying. I'm seeing pretty much him trudge through everything Gaara throws at him. So I like that fight a lot. I don't know if I'd personally say it's A, but I think it's good. If you're bundling them together, I think it's fine. It's a bit of an interesting, I don't know. I think it's very satisfying. I'm a big Kiyomaru guy, so it's kind of tough for me to separate like emotion from it, to be honest, because I think Kiyomaru's like has one of the cooler arsenals in the series.
Yeah.
But hey, man.
I agree with it being an A, honestly. So it's up there. Naruto and Sasuke.
S, easy S, not even questionable.
Final one. Yeah, I have no problem saying it's this. Like, I don't think anybody can really contend with that, because it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, this is, and there's a definition of landmark. It is this. Like, I mean, this is one of the fights that, like, because again, I thought they were softening the series when this happened, and this was like everything that the series had been building towards, like, and it delivered. Like, again, we keep bringing up build up. It's very tough to like pay off a build up like this, and they pulled out all the stops, especially with the constant back and forth that was happening between them. Like at the start, Sasuke had the advantage, and then Naruto got the advantage, and Sasuke again, and then they were pretty much dead even. And Sasuke ended up getting the final blow. I think it was all kinds of great.
This fight is paced very well. It's a tennis match, which is great. That's how you know you're like structuring a good fight well. Mm-hmm. When it's just a back and forth. You have Naruto and Sasuke like evolving. You have Sasuke, you have these characters evolving, getting stronger throughout. You also have Sasuke acknowledging Naruto. There's a bit of, a lot of what was unsaid is said in this fight, and I think, everybody said probably their piece on this fight, and I think a lot of people would agree, but just the whole aspect between them, their arsenals, the choreography, it's just, everything's just so peak. Obviously, seeing Naruto use more of the QB, curse mark stage 2, seeing what that looks like for Sasuke. You finally get to see the Rasengan Chidori clash. You have all this stuff, and you really just get to see like where Sasuke's at now. I mean, I feel like you could just go on for hours about the good of this fight, but I'm pretty sure everybody just universally agrees. Like, this fight is just no question asked.
I'm saying this has both the narrative points and the choreography points to it. It's like everything you want and more, especially with the characters that it involves. So yeah, it's everything you want in the fight and more. So now we're going to go into the Shippuden territory, and we're going off of Deidara versus Gaara. Now, again, this is like a landmark fight because it really shows. I mean, I know we got Itachi and Kisame in the OG Naruto, but this gave us a real good indication of what the rest of the Akatsuki are going to be like going forward. And I think for what it was cemented. Like it gave us that information we needed on how powerful they were going to be. And I love Deidara. I think he's one of the more like, I won't say powerful, but he's definitely one of the more tougher to beat And so I like his personality, and obviously Gaara is one of the best characters, like you said earlier. And I think this fight is all kinds of crazy. I'm okay with putting it in A tier. I don't know about you.
I'm in the like B to A range. I like this fight, and I will say it does establish the Akatsuki in like how, because we know about the Akatsuki, right? But you don't really see Itachi and Kisame, and it really establishes the threat that like, wow, all these guys are crazy strong because you just have this juggernaut Gaara built up all throughout part 1. And obviously there's a lot of factors that go into that fight. That's a very, interesting fight I've talked about on my channel before. There's a lot that goes into it. But for all intents and purposes, like Gaara does lose that fight, or he comes out getting captured, which not only does it start, set Shippuden in motion, but it also does set the precedent of like, okay, wow, like these guys are crazy. And you obviously get to see Datara's very unique arsenal. It's very cool. So, I also like IQ aspect with Datara, planting the explosives inside Gaara's sand and whatnot, forcing him into certain positions by, making certain maneuvers. I think that is interesting. So, yeah, B to A is fine in my opinion.
Yeah, I think because of who it is, and because it's like one of my more favorite Akatsuki members, I'm putting it at A. And because it's Gaara, I'm putting it in A too. And because it's a fight in the air for the most part, and that's like something that we don't usually see, especially up to this point. We haven't really seen a fight like there, like all the way up in the air for the most part. So I think it's pretty good,
and that plays into the outcome of the fight, which is interesting. The fact that all that sand's in the air, which is ironic.
So the 30% clone fights between Kisame and Itachi against Team Guy and Team 7.
I think you could bundle these, to be honest. Or you could.
No, I honestly would agree with you. I don't, because it's only 30%. I feel bad about putting it in D, but I just don't like. It's
not it. Yeah,
like
they're like. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's a good moment for Naruto, like specifically because of like it shows a little bit more growth on his end, but not significant. You know what I'm saying? Like. Nothing too crazy. Like his ability to start countering Genjutsu now is cool, and his giant Rasengan is all right, I suppose. But I think I just like the Kakashi and Itachi interaction in this fight. Specifically with Kakashi kind of, giving Itachi a moment of fright when he kind of trailed off the idea that Kakashi might have the Manku Sharingan. Like to me, that sent chills down my spine because like again, I was thinking, when this fight happened the first time, I was remembering back to the part 1 when Itachi curb stopped Kakashi, and then here you got Kakashi kind of like, giving Itachi a bit of a fright, like, oh, like Kakashi, did you, unlock the Monkey Shiner? So like, I thought that was kind of cool, but other than that, like, and Guy fighting Kisame was kind of cool, but
it's just really like 6 Gate was the coolest thing of that fight, in my opinion. Yeah. Team Guy was cool. I will say, the main thing for me with these fights, it's cool seeing these characters again, but like nobody thought that was Itachi. You know what I'm saying? Nobody thought Itachi was going to lose. So you're kind of like, you're like, what's going on here? And like, it's revealed at the end of the fight, obviously, because like they're fighting weird. But and I will say, like, when you look at what these fights represented in the series, they were like as the jutsu was intended, just to stall. So exactly. I don't really think they're that crazy. So I think D is fine.
Man, I have no problem putting this next one in F. The freaking
F, easy, yeah,
bro.
So bad.
Again, that's a cardinal sin if there ever was one in Naruto. Like, why?
It's no reason for it. It's so funny because this fight is bad in like every medium. Like, I want to give you an example for anybody who's playing like the Clash of Ninja Revolution game. Ironically, this fight's in that game, and it's just as horrible because they do the same thing. Like, this fight is universally just so middling. Like, there's nothing to it. It's so, I think this is probably one of the worst fights in the series, just like, there's nothing that comes out of it. It's not interesting. It's just like, it's like Naruto versus Naruto at the waterfall.
Yeah.
Like, what is there? They're just doing the same attacks at each other. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Well, and their answer to beating them was like stronger than I was the day before. What? Like, that doesn't make any freaking, oh my God. I wanted to just throw, it was somebody, I don't know whose idea really what. I'm hoping it was not Kishimoto's. I'm hoping someone just came to me like, hey, this would be a good idea to kill some time. But yeah, so I don't, Sakura and Shio versus Sasori, I'm putting that in S, bro. That
got it, man.
All kinds of woo! Like, I'm not even gonna be objective about it. I think that's like a 100% my opinion. I think Sasori is legit slept on. And
goated
because it's Sakura's like shining moment. Let's be honest, like in Shippuden anyway. Like I have to give her some because again, like I said earlier, I don't like that I have to hate Sakura, but in this fight, she has my utmost respect. And Chio being a G is fine, is awesome, and then Sasori just being a menace is kind of like the highlight of the fight. You know what I'm saying? So,
I agree.
Well, Sasori almost feels like a freaking. I know in the Storm games it's kind of what he is, but like Sasori almost feels like a Final Fantasy boss because he's got so many freaking like forms that once you start feeling you have you've beaten him because of like you countered one of his arsenals, he pulls out another ability or another form that you have to go like ham on in order to survive. So it's all kinds of crazy.
No, it's just so good. I mean, the fact that he's a puppet user is already cool, right? But then like he's using these puppets. He's using the third Kazekage puppet with jutsu. It's like he's using Iron Stick. There's so much cool stuff. And then, so there's a lot to this. You obviously have a great showing from Sakura in that fight, Chio. You really get this cool stuff. You get to see Sakura's growth. And then the ending portion of that fight, like the second half, when Sasori reveals his puppet body, which is just like iconic in my opinion. I love that moment. The animation is just so stellar. It's really just it's a real treat spectacle-wise. Everything about the fight's phenomenal. I just can't say enough good about this fight. Like, I'm a big Sasori fan, so it's just seeing this, it's one of my favorite fights in Shippuden, you know what I mean? I don't, even if you hate Sakura, it's really hard to hate this fight, in my opinion. Like, that's the thing.
We'll go on to, now this next one, I wouldn't even call it a fight. I gotta be honest with you, even though it's Kakashi, and Kakashi is like, not shining, it's a shining moment for Kakashi, because we finally get his like Sharingan reveal, and what he can do with it, which at the time was like, mind-blowing. I gotta be honest with you, this fight's a little bit anticlimactic, not in a bad way, I suppose, because it is meant to like to show that Deidara can survive under this kind of circumstance. Like Akatsuki members are no joke, so like the fact that he was able to survive it, I think that's what it's meant to do. But it's not really a fight, it's more of a chase, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I think that pretty much like, I mean, I wouldn't even. I'm not generous. I think I see her being a little more generous. For me, this would be F, in my opinion. Like, really, realistically, there's nothing that happens. It's just them chasing. The anime adds to it with like some micro bombs from Deidara, but there really is nothing to it. It's just them running after him. Like, Kamui is cool, so like I would see D if you're going off the Kamui stuff, but compared to other fights where people actually fight, I wouldn't even give this one a rating, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm surprised it doesn't.
I'll go with B. I mean, that'd be D, because like I said, Kamui is probably the only thing that's like cementing it in the D tier, I'm gonna be honest with you. So Orochimaru versus Four Tails Naruto, crazy. Because we hadn't really seen Orochimaru fight since Hiruzen, right? And so the fact that he's now finally going toe-to-toe with somebody, and it just so happens to be Naruto, and is like, because at the moment, we had never seen something like the Four Tails before, so like, Naruto going ballistic in this fight, not having any control, and him throwing out these Biju bombs that were like, unheard of at the time to us, and then Orochimaru being able to like, react to it in a way, like, it's so crazy, it's something we hadn't seen in Naruto prior, and so, I think it's, I'll say this, the Four Tails itself is just unbelievably cool. Yeah. Seeing the, but more, because, we were kind of curious, because we got to the Three Tails stage of, like, Naruto, but, like, we're like, okay, what happens if he keeps going? Like, is it just more bubbles and stuff like that? Yeah. But no, seeing this, and, I think it also sets a precedent. It's good Orochimaru stuff. We love Orochimaru, but the Four Tails just really carries it in this situation, because this is the point where Naruto's not even human anymore. Exactly. He doesn't even look like Naruto. So he's like akin to like a wild beast, and how, him dealing with Orochimaru's provocations, I think makes this fight interesting. I think it's a B tier fight. I think it's good. Yeah. I think it's good. Not the craziest fight, because, it doesn't really, it more so serves as a purpose to display how the Nine Tails is not this get out of jail free card that's going to give Naruto a slide to all his problems. There are consequences to using this power. So I like that, and it definitely carries with Naruto for the rest of the series. But the fight itself is just, it's very interesting to see the Tail Beast Bomb. You really get a sense for how strong the Nine Tails is, Yeah. Going on to Sasuke versus semi-team Kakashi. I gotta be honest with you, the interaction was great. I think there's more narrative points I can give this fight than it was choreography.
Yeah.
Like, there's really not a whole lot of choreography. Like, Chidori's stream is awesome, right? I think it was cool. Sasuke being the coolest character there is amazing. Him almost launching Kirin was cool. But that's it, though. Like, I gotta be honest with you, like, at the time when it first happened, I sent chills down my spine, right? But now when I watch back this fight, I don't really feel the same way. I know this because like there's more stuff that happens, but there are other fights and other interactions that have happened in the past and whatever that I could rewatch and still feel the same as I did the first time around. But this fight, it's a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why exactly, but to me, I feel like, again, like with the Deidara and Kakashi thing, it's just a little bit anticlimactic. I thought something else was going to happen that would have, like, I don't know. I think it's great. The interaction's great, and the added weight behind it's awesome. But as a fight, I don't know.
There's not much. You know, I will say, like, it is satisfying to see, you know, because we're all curious about Sasuke. You know, we're like, bro, how strong is he? You know, what's the deal with him? So I agree with what you're saying with the interaction. And I would probably add, too, just seeing his, like, application of Shidori's just also very interesting. But I think the big thing is, like, you know, we're just kind of shocked to see Sasuke and stuff like that. There's not really too much to this fight other than him just, like, slapping around. Although I will say that the moment where he, like, suppresses the QB is arguably one of his coldest.
Yes.
I love that a lot because it just, you know, he goes from this guy who's just, like, terrified of Naruto and the QB to, like, pulling up in his subconscious, and he's like, who is, and then he also builds the foreshadowing for Madara because, you know, you see the statue and he's like, yo, you remind me of Madara. And he's like, who is that? Like, I'm him. You know what I mean? So so I think this fight's more so just a couple of cool moments for Sasuke with, like, some great interactions from Team 7 and stuff like that. So I would say, like,
because the Sasuke tournament is just like one shot in an entire team, I'll give it a C.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I think Sasuke is just being cool, and like I said, there's something about a one-sided stomp that makes it, like, if it's done well, it's done well. You know what I'm saying? It's a good fight if it's done well. And it's okay. So I think C is a good place to put it, in my opinion. Asuma, like Team Asuma versus Hidan and Kakuzu. I gotta be honest with you. Great fight, you know, for what it is. But there's nothing like, it's not a landmark per se. It's just used to be built up Shikamaru's character, which is great. I do hate that Asuma got killed. I will say that I think Asuma is one of the more chillest characters in the entire series, and in a show full of, like, that could be that has over dramatic characters. Let's be honest, there are characters that are over dramatic, right? But then you have people like Asuma and Shikamaru who are just really just chilling. You know, they're just chill characters. They don't really, you know, they're just trying to do what they need to do and live a life. You know, and I really like the dynamic between Asuma and Shikamaru. So losing that was definitely a blow to the heart. But as a fight, it is great that Shikamaru is able to figure out Hidan's ritual, like, all by himself. Like, no one else could even, like, remotely, like, maybe Kakashi probably would have figured it out, but, like, the fact that Shikamaru was able to figure it out in a matter of minutes, just from the subtle clues that was given to him, is all kinds of great. And so as a fight, it's all right. I think it's just more of a thematic fight than anything else.
I'd say, like, C. I'd agree with you.
Yeah. Now this one, I don't know about you, Thunder, but I'm okay with putting this whole fight.
It's beautiful.
I'm talking about, like, from the first interactions of Team Kakashi to Naruto landing the Rasen Shoryuken. I'm going to put this one in S tier because I think, like, I don't know, it's like a whole bunch of characters coming together to beat this one guy.
The choreography is phenomenal. The hand-to-hand, just, like, seeing Kakashi deal with the hearts and stuff like that. It's very interesting. You rarely find characters in the series kind of as evenly matched as Kakashi and Kakuzu was, with, like, Kakashi kind of being on a back foot almost throughout the fight because he's kind of having to deal with all this. The Hidan portions are great. Seeing that bit. So I think this fight, you know, I will say, you know, again, this is one of those fights where, depending on what media you consume Naruto from, is going to kind of depend, because the anime makes this fight like 20 times better than the manga, in my opinion. Like, not even close, night and day. So I will say that. But again, like I think the spectacle of it, it really displays another Akatsuki member. It's always great seeing Kakashi fight. I think like ARS is honestly perfectly fine for this fight.
Well, like you said, like the combination of Kakashi going toe to toe, Shikamaru like outsmarting like both of them, Kakuzu and Hidan was great, and then the landing like highlight moment of Naruto, landing the Rasen Shuriken for the first time was a standout moment in the entire series. So it's like all that, like there's so many character moments that get like highlighted here that it's really hard for me to put it in A. I think it's totally deserves the S spot.
Yeah.
Now we're going to Sasuke versus Orochimaru. Again, like because of the circumstances, it's almost a stomp. It isn't, but it is though. It's like because it's not a fight. You know what I'm saying? It's an interaction. I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Because
yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think it's interesting because we all knew that Sasuke wasn't gonna let Orochimaru absorb him, but it was this. We were curious, right? We're like, what's gonna happen when we get to that point? Sasuke's not gonna sit around and let this drop by. And a lot of people call Sasuke out for what he does here, but I actually, enjoy it because he's acting like a ninja.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense why you would jump Orochimaru on his deathbed. And I also do think it's interesting because even though, it's an interesting... I've said interesting 40 times. I like the dynamic because you get a bit of insight into Sasuke's ideology at this point in the story. And this is why I like... this is why Heavy Sasuke is one of my favorite variations of the character because he's a very morally great character in that, he's in his own area. There's a sense of honor and like there is some lines he won't cross. And you get to see that here, and you get to see his true feelings revealed about Orochimaru and how he does not like Orochimaru in any capacity.
His speech was amazing, bro.
So good. So good.
Just like tearing Orochimaru down, like verbally, was one of the best Sasuke moments. Because like every time he's like getting like throwing an insult to Orochimaru, I'm like, yes, screw you, Orochimaru. Yeah, so like I was totally like one of those things. And like you said, like I think Heavy Sasuke again is the same. I feel like the same way. Like probably my favorite version of Sasuke, just because, like, yeah, he's a rogue ninja, quote unquote, but he's not a villain. Like he's not gonna, like, he's still holding on to principles and morals that he held from the Leaf Pillars. So like, obviously, there's more of the Leaf inside of him than anything else. So, but he's not gonna be a goody two shoes. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna do what he feels like he has to do, but he's also gonna be, a morally upstanding because like. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, I like you say, he's a great character, but he's still a Team Leaf if it came down to it. So.
Yeah. And other than that, it's just like him chopping up snakes. You have that scene with him in Orochimaru's like own universe or own space, however you want to talk about that. So, that's I would say it's like C or I would say like, I think the spectacle of it makes it C, considering what else is in C. But as far as the fight, again, not the craziest stuff.
Yeah, I'm okay with putting it in C. I think it's a fair estimate for C. Sasuke versus Deidara. Okay, like I said earlier, I don't want to throw out like big letters, but dang it, man, I don't feel bad at all putting this one in S tier.
That I agree with. This fight is just so good for so many reasons. The IQ tacticalness of it, the chess, match. We get a call back to the elemental matchups that were mentioned earlier with Naruto and how that plays into the fight. You get to see Sasuke as a fighter on display as he's taking on the Akatsuki member 1v1. This is something that nobody really has done in the series, and it also does demonstrate Sasuke's power at this point. You get to see more of Deidara. I think there's just so much to love about this fight. You'll be hard. The only people I find that don't like this fight do not like it because of like their interpretation of the ending, which is just unbelievably, regardless of what you want to say, which if you want to say plot armor, which I think people throw out plot armor, for example, way too much nowadays. I don't necessarily think it applies to this fight, but I will say just everything about this fight is spectacular. It just feels very, very part one or there's like early Shippuden's one of my favorite eras for the reason that like a lot of characters are closer in strength. And it makes for a lot more compelling engagement. So, this fight isn't just... there's so much that goes into it. Sasuke trying to cover the range game, the landmines, and placing it. He's literally testing a theory in the middle of battle. It's the coolest thing ever. So there's so much to say about this fight.
I was going to say, because like when I said earlier about how there are fights in the show that I could rewatch, go back to and rewatch and just like not skip a scene. This is absolutely one of those fights. Like there is just no way I could skip a scene when I'm rewatching this fight, because again, like it's all kinds of like crazy when it comes to tactics. Like Sasuke, like they say, testing out a theory in mid fight. Like he's literally stalling Data out as he's testing out a theory. So yeah, like you said, and stuff that we hadn't seen before on that level, like the C4 Karua or C0, it's stuff like that. It's just like, and then the flashbacks of why Data hates the Uchiha as a whole is just, I don't know. It does add to Itachi's character in a way. Also, it just makes Itachi even more cool, and it cements the danger of Itachi even more so as Sasuke's getting closer and closer to getting to that fight with Itachi. So I think this fight in itself it serves up and builds up a fight for Itachi, but at the same time it lands a serious great fight for Sasuke in its own right. So yeah, I think it's perfectly fine. S tier. Pain versus Itachi. I think I'd get a lot of flack if I did not put this in S tier, but the thing is like,
I feel like, I mean, the thing with this fight is, it's a great demonstrator for Jiraiya and Pain, and their abilities. Because we've seen bits and pieces of Pain, but just seeing him on display and seeing what Jiraiya can really do. I'm of the opinion like this is like A to S tier easily. Just everything about the fight too, as well as the fact that there's so much mystery involved. We really don't know what's going on with Pain, and we're in Jiraiya's shoes. We're like, dude, what's going on? There's an unstoppable monster. There's no real weakness. You get to see Jiraiya like try and survive. It's very like, I don't know. I just really enjoy that aspect of it. You get to see Sage Mode and what Jiraiya can really do with Mont Pa. And, I will say, too, the ripple effects for this fight are just phenomenal. It ends with Jiraiya's death, which is obviously tragic. I feel like this is A to S. I think this fight's great. I like this fight.
I'll give it an S. Like, there's not too many S's in the tier already, so I think it's totally fair if we put this in S. Like you said, we're putting ourselves in Jiraiya's shoes, so like the tension is just as real for us as it is for Jiraiya.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously the ending is, it's a landmark, but in a different way. I'm saying it's really hard to put into words a moment like that because of like what it means going forward. And so, and I think Jiraiya lost the fight, but in the end he won the war by being able to relay the intel that he needed to Naruto and the Leaf. So it's a great moment. Sasuke and Itachi, I gotta be honest, like I don't know, like I'm obviously going to put this in S, right?
Yeah,
I think it's a phenomenal fight. But having said that, though, compared to what we have in S already, I gotta be honest, with the exception of maybe a couple, I wasn't ever really the hugest fan of this fight. Like going in, like it surprised me because like it's a great fight. But the interaction between them is great, but I feel as though it got patted down with a lot of conversation, up until a certain point. Seeing them clash with the fireball and then Itachi using the Amaterasu was awesome. You know what I'm saying? I think maybe the Genjutsu part was the part I didn't like. I don't know. I guess I'm like the minority when it comes to
yeah, I mean, I could like offer the other perspective of this. I get to see what you're coming from. I will say I enjoy this fight. As far as the dialogue, I will say I do like it because it does clear up a lot of history about the Mangekyo Sharingan, because it still was very unknown at that point in the series. We were still like, we didn't know too much. We were like, just in Sasuke's perspective and whatnot. I think it was interesting to see that. And I think it did a great job at displaying Sasuke's growth. Kirin was such a highlight for me.
I was going to say, like, there is no way I could put this in S tier on Kirin alone. Like,
yeah. So, the Susanoo, that's all great. I think it's interesting. I think the main thing that could also detract this fight is just figuring out that Itachi was sick and going back to Sasuke didn't really have a chance. But I think if you isolate the fight, it becomes a lot better. Even going back to, you can just see, you understand Itachi's plays a lot more and whatnot, how he has to press Sasuke to reveal Orochimaru. So I think, I enjoy this fight a lot. It feels very ninja. There's like shuriken bouts, the very tight jutsu slugfest. You see their powers. You also get to see Sasuke break down at the fact. I think this is easy S, but like I could see how, you know what I mean? But I think this is like no contest S.
Yeah, like I said, I think objectively I would have to put this in S. I think for the most part, because like you said, because Itachi's kind of like not 100% taking it seriously, it kind of hinders it a little bit for me. But I'm still gonna put it in S because I think it's definitely deserved of S.
Yeah, like the build up, you know, everything surrounding it. Yeah, there's no question.
The ending itself has to put it in S. So narratively, S tier alone. So now we're going to Killer Bee versus Team Taka. And Thunder, you want to hit the reins on this one?
Yeah. So I love this fight. I know a lot of people go into this fight with the notion like, oh, it's so satisfying seeing Sasuke get beat up. And I'm like, that's fine. The reason I like that's also why I like this fight. It is one of the few times in the series where you get to see a team versus a stronger opponent. You know, this is literally what, you know, like, for example, we make like Naruto, like what if discussions and stuff like that. This fight is literally like encapsulating that, you know, because a lot of people like, you know, they'll just say, oh, you know, and I understand the logic was like a lot of characters being stronger, but I think this fight demonstrates a lot of what we would see generally and what we envision in a lot of our videos and whatnot, with the team working as support, using their functions, which again, it's really cool to see Sasuke's squad, you know, working together, seeing Killer Bee and like what a perfect Jinchuriki looks like. Cause we see certain Jinchuriki over time, but we're not really exposed to anybody other than Naruto that deeply. And then you see Killer Bee and you're like, wow, this kind of like, okay, now we can see what potential Naruto could look like if he ever mastered the Kyuubi's chakra. So there's so many great aspects, to this fight. I think the animation's phenomenal. And just seeing Sasuke's unit work together to take down this insurmountable force is just such a satisfying, way of looking at the fight. And just the conclusion with everything, him thinking back to Team 7, that Amaterasu, just so much good stuff in this fight. I can't say enough about it. So while there is the aspect of like, oh yeah, Sasuke got beat down, like people are like, oh, he would have died multiple times. Like, yeah, but you're missing the point. That's like the point of the fight. He needs his team as support. This is a team battle. You know what I mean? So I think people kind of gloss over that and like really just don't know. I think this is one of the best. I love this fight. I can't say enough.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And honestly, I don't have much qualms in putting it in A tier. I think it's that good because it demonstrates a lot of. Because it's not just like I said, it's not just Sasuke. Even though Sasuke is the main character in this scene, like everybody gets their time to shine. Like Karin, Jugo, Suigetsu, B. Everybody gets their moment to shine in this fight in and in itself. So I think it's a great team dynamic. I think it's a great fight in itself. So I think it belongs in A tier.
Yeah, I agree.
Kakashi versus Pain. Even as a Kakashi fan, I gotta be honest. I mean, look, I love Kakashi, but I don't know, because he died in this fight. I'm hating on it a little bit. No, I'm kidding.
That's crazy. Well, I think this is a go ahead. Yeah. I want to let you take the reins on this one.
Well, because like the thing is, Kakashi, like I feel as though got the short end of the stick in this fight because I think he did a really good job. Because I will say one thing that I hate is that the fact that the Osterpath offs was like, I don't know. I'm going to go on a tangent, but to me, I thought there's just no way a damaged Osterpath that was beaten to crap and back by Choji's giant fist should have been able to get in the way of the Raikiri just inches away from the Diva Path. Like that in itself, in the fight, always confused me. Even reading it or watching it in the anime, it just completely just baffled me. And I get it; it's supposed to be plot reasons. I guess you could akin to it because Naruto had to be the one to take Pain out. I get it, but to me, that doesn't make it all the less distracting and a little bit puzzling to me. But Kakashi's performance in this fight was amazing. I think the fact that he was able to almost beat both of them.
I think this fight is just a testament to Kakashi as a fighter. You get to see him, play as he does, very tactically, using clones and just throwing techniques out to gauge Pain's abilities. He uses multiple clones, actually, just like because he needs to get intel on Pain, which obviously serves Naruto later in the series, so there's a ripple effect. I think it's very satisfying. I think, I think this fight is just realistically a testament to how strong Pain is, because essentially Kakashi was like chakra fatiguing himself to just figure out Pain's intel. So, it's not even as if like, oh, Kakashi's a bad showing. It's like, nah, Pain's really that strong. So I think this is a great fight for all those reasons. You get to see the diva path, and it's like this fight does a great job of like giving you hope that Kakashi might actually pull one over on the diva path, and then ripping it right away when the Asura path goes in front of him. So, and I think that's actually a positive of the fight. I'm of the opinion. So I listen. Regardless of what happens at the end of the arc, the fact that, it also gives a bit of a testament to Jiraiya and what he was dealing with pain and whatnot. So I really like that. And it's just, there's a lot that goes into this fight. I like the whole back and forth with that. And just the way they try and incorporate and figure out the exact semantics of the Diva Bat's ability. So I think it's a B-tier fight, but I like it a lot. I think there's a lot.
I would agree too. I don't want to give, because it's a relatively short fight for what it is. And I think Kakashi does a great job, but I have to put it in B tier as well.
Yeah.
But it's still a great fight, though. One of the best, I feel like, in Kakashi's case. Now we're going to Naruto versus Pain, and I would get very hated if I did not put this in S. Not saying it doesn't deserve it. I think this fight is one of the best in the entire series, not alone in Shippuden. I think the fact that Naruto's entrance alone could put it in S tier. I mean, let's be honest. Like, Naruto's entrance into the village could put it in S tier in and of itself. Because, like, I don't know, it really gave that feeling that the village is literally... Because beforehand, like, Naruto was saving the village, right? But it was this moment that really made the village, like, we have no other choice. Like, Naruto is our only hope. Like, and it's not even like they were almost expecting not to have to count on Naruto. They were expecting that Naruto was going to play a huge role at this point. Because at this point, Naruto's a lot more dependable when it comes to handling opponents like Pain. So now we finally get this moment where he's no backup, aside from Ma and Paul. But literally, it's all by himself, fighting against Akatsuki member. He's on that level now, and he did not hold back. This fight pulled out all the stops, and it was a treat every minute, I feel like.
Yeah. There's just not... I mean, it's not as if I don't have anything to say on this fight. There's just, there's so much good stuff. The strategy, seeing Naruto Sage Mode on display. Like, this is really when Naruto became, like, a complete individual in the series, in my opinion, because pretty much he had been, like, stacking all these elements to his arsenal. And this is really when you saw, like, the fruits of his labor being on full use. And this is really when he became somebody. Because, for example, in Shippuden, Naruto's really, like, he's impressive, but... he's not that crazy to the point, at least without Rasen Shuriken, because we find out shortly after he's enabled. So just seeing all of that is so amazing. See, the hype, the build up to this fight. Obviously having to live up to Jiraiya's legacy. The whole Nine Tails aspect, seeing Minato. There's so much good stuff. Seeing Pain on display. So it's very easy to see why this is an S. I honestly don't. Whatever's been said about this fight has already been said. Like, I would just be repeating a lot of the same. Yeah,
exactly. Sasuke versus Five Kage. I'll say right off the bat, I think this is like an A tier fight. I almost want to put it in S tier, but I think, I don't know. I would feel a little bit weird putting it in S tier because I don't think it's that great. But I think the fact that Sasuke was able to do that much against who he was up against is all, and the interactions itself thematically, it works, for Sasuke, because it really does show how far he's gone, how far he's fallen, and him showing off his new abilities and whatnot, the Susanoo, his fight against Gaara, against the Raikage, against Mei, just him barreling through the Kage, it's something that we just never expected to see from someone like Sasuke, and the fact that he's able to survive it and all is just a testament to him. And so I think thematically it's amazing. As a fight, it's amazing. I just couldn't see myself putting in S tier. I think A tier is like the place.
Yeah, I enjoy it. You get to see, a lot of the Kage from other villages. You get to see Sasuke develop and use his Mangekyo Sharingan. There's a lot to love here. And essentially Sasuke's at that point in the series where he's strong enough to where each of these Kage can display their abilities on Sasuke. So until obviously he wears out with his MS, he's be safe. But I think it's kind of a win-win situation. I'm a big fan of this arc. I don't know people's opinions on it. It's one of my favorite arcs in Shippuden. But it just really is cool to see, there's a lot to love. Like, and I feel like you could honestly, maybe the tier list guy should have done this, but this is because this isn't Snow's tier list, by the way. Or you didn't make this, right? To clarify.
No.
Yeah, okay. So these could have been like segmented. For example, like the Sasuke versus Raikage could have been its own fight. But I think if you take all those fights together, like A's easy,
Yeah, for sure. As I said, it's a great fight. It's one of those things like you're on edge the entire time because of who's involved and like how it's evolving and as a fight. Now this next one, I have no problem putting in an S tier. This fight, Danzo versus Sasuke, is, bro, like the fact that Sasuke is like finally, killing Danzo, and we finally get to see Danzo's finally out of our lives. That alone puts it in S tier. Gotta be honest with you. But as a fight, as a whole, it really freaking works. Like choreography wise, it's one of the best, and thematically, like, I hate it on the side of like, because I hate having to see Sasuke barrel through down the revenge path even more so, and the fact that he's finally killing somebody he's really wanted to get revenge off for a while, it does suck in the sense of like, I hate seeing Sasuke as an evil person. This arc I did hate because of how Sasuke's being handled as a character, even though I get how it's supposed to be written. It just, as a fan of Sasuke, I just hated seeing him as a bad guy. But
yeah,
and thematically, I think it works though. Again, this whole fight's great. The constant like back and forth that Danzo had with Sasuke and Sasuke had with Danzo, it's so great. And it pulls out all the stops, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat when you're watching it. Thunder.
No, this fight's great. For a lot of the same reasons you listed. It's interesting because I'm on some of like. I understand the sentiment for sure behind like evil Sasuke and stuff like that. I will say I'm a fan of like the Black Air Force energy he exhibits in this arc.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion like it's obviously there's a lot of, it's clearly like Sasuke's not Sasuke in this arc. There's a lot of anger that's being projected. It's being aimed somewhere it shouldn't, or it basically all the anger he has built up has to be redirected. It doesn't just go away. So obviously, and you see that as he's being influenced now, and there's all these factors surrounding it. But I will say I did enjoy this. I enjoyed I enjoyed Sasuke as a character during all this arc because he was just wild. But this fight, backs up fight, it's just it's something because it's just good, man. Like it's all of Sasuke's fights are generally just very good because the way Sasuke operates as a fighter, he's very different from Naruto. So the way Naruto fights, he has a lot of, because they're both geniuses in different areas of fighting.
Yeah.
Naruto is very good at quick plays that surprise the opponent with shadow clones, like on the spry moves that the people aren't accounting for and whatnot, and like quick strategies. Sasuke is different in the fact that he will set up win conditions throughout his battle in sort of like a chess match and try to put his opponent in checkmate. So when you kind of have that with him versus Danzo, and you see this with him versus Naruto, it's just very fulfilling, and it makes for a very great, like, it's like a bow. Like, the bow finally, like, tightens the knot at the end of the fight. So, it's great to see Sasuke as a fighter, and, like, that type of fighting is very interesting. And then, obviously, seeing the Susanoo and evolving. Izanagi's always interesting. And, like, listen, regardless of anybody, I said this once in this video, even if you didn't like Sasuke, you were rooting against Danzo. That's the bottom line for this fight. Yeah, so, I enjoy this fight. I think it's phenomenal.
I agree. And I think putting an S tier is definitely, it deserves that justice, I feel like, Toby or Obito versus Conan, it's a relatively short fight, but it's Conan's time to shine. You know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, we don't get anything from her really either before or after this, like, unfortunately. And I think Conan was definitely one of the misused characters in the series. I thought she was really cool. I thought her design was cool. Her character, her chill attitude was kind of cool. I said this before in a video, like going off topic a little bit, that I thought she should have just stuck with the Leaf Village prior, at least until they got the Akatsuki taken care of. I thought she was just like hung out with the Leaf Village providing intel on the Akatsuki, but it is what it is. As a fight though, it's great. It was good to see Conan like one up Obito, even though it didn't end well. But had it not been for Izanagi, I don't know, she probably would have ended the war. You know what I'm saying? I'm just
I think it's I like this fight a lot because, there's the element of prep. She's obviously prepping for Obito, which is very cool. I like that whole I like it when characters kind of prep against certain people. It's very cool because it gives them the time to shine against characters maybe they wouldn't have as much of a chance against. And, I like that it plays into the fact that her and Obito worked together for such a long period of time and that she was constantly observing him, which played into this fight. So it makes sense why she was able to do as well as she did because she had all these factors going for her. And I think Conan's abilities are very cool. So I enjoyed this fight because it was really just like a testament to her and what Obito did. For example, like there's a nice parallel between Obito that I like to consider, the fact that Danzo had 10 Sharingan on his arm.
Yeah.
Conan does like a paper bombs that explode for 10 minutes. He does his Inagi 5 through 10 minutes, however you interpret that. Bam, you kind of have that parallel that was already established. So everything about this fight makes sense. It's just kind of like the fight ends and you're like, damn, she was close. But so it's kind of like, yeah. So it's really like, it's a big gut wrenching. And I think that's what makes it great. And I think Conan definitely could have done a lot more. So I think it's like B to A tier.
Yeah.
Just a great fight.
I'm okay with putting it in B because of how short it kind of is. But I think it's a great fight in itself. So I think a B is a fair place to put it. Naruto versus Kurama. I think it's great. The fact that it's kind of in his mind though is kind of does hinder it a little bit because it's not the, like, I guess you can argue it's not the actual Nine Tails, but as thematically it works. And then him interacting with his mom and her helping him adds to the layer of the fight. Having said all that though, I would be okay with putting it in A tier because of what it means to Naruto going forward and for Kurama. Like, it's definitely a good character moment for Kurama as well. So the fight itself is great, but I think I like this fight more so because of the thematic weight it holds to it for both characters and Kushina as well. So I'm okay with putting it in A tier. Thunder, I don't know what your feelings on it.
It's almost a coming of age for Naruto because this had been hyped up for a while. The fact that, I mean, we knew at some point he was going to have to deal with the fact that he was the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. And after like the 5 Kage Summit, it was inevitable because the Nine Tails just became too much of a liability and he couldn't allow it to stand anymore. And I think there is something to see that Naruto had grown beyond the little kid who was just begging the Nine Tails for power.
Yeah.
And he actually he very much gains like the Nine Tails respect almost in the sense that, and the Nine Tails wasn't expecting all of this from Naruto. So I think there is something to that. It's also kind of an interesting spectacle, I will say, just to see Naruto through all these, he does like the Sage Mode Shadow Clone Barrage with all these individuals. The Kushina aspect of this fight is also as interesting. But I think this fight's really good spectacle-wise. I think it's a good fight. I think the A's fine, if not what it represents. But a lot of the stuff it's just cool. It's almost cathartic to see Naruto just beat the Nine Tails up for how long the Nine Tails was just ragging on Naruto. Yeah, it's like, all right, you kind of had this coming, bro.
Yeah, for sure. So I think A does it good justice, I feel like, as a fight. Guy versus Kisame, third time around, I guess, before the war. Great fight. Because it's Guy, I always want to put it in A, but I don't know. Like,
I think honestly, like, there's just not enough that goes down. Like, it's really just like 7th gate and like a little bit of 6th gate versus Kisame, which makes me think it's like B tier. Like, I think it's cool to see the 7th gate. But the issue is like, that's all there is. It's like more so just the glass, and that's all there's not really too much there. And the fact that Kisame does not have Samehana.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, it kind of hinders a little bit from being.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it was cool to see like this little pseudo rivalry come to its head.
Yeah. And then, Guy pulling that don't move don't move, and then he just at the inch of a thumb, and then bam, like, so that in itself is amazing. I'm okay with putting it in B. I think it's a great fight, but I wouldn't put it in A tier. I don't think it's that great of a fight. Onuki versus Kabuto and Datara in the sky. Gotta be honest with you, I don't like.
Like D or F, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna
be honest.
C. I don't hate it. Like, it's not a boring fight, but I don't go back to it all that much. Gotta be honest with you. Same with Darui and the Kinkaku Force.
I hate this fight. I despise this fight, actually.
I'll put it in D, because I do like Darui as a character. I think it's kind of cool, but this fight was not as entertaining as it could have.
This fight feels like an episode of like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. If you've ever watched that show with like the whole... him changing his name, like his most said word mid-fight, and them being like a few uses off, is so crazy to me. I will say, I don't like the fact that Ginkaku and Gengaku were built up and kind of went out that way. Like, I get they were playing around with Daru, and I get there was that aspect of that. And this wasn't their full potential because, in character or like at their full power, they would just use the version 2 cloak, of, the sacred ninja tools and whatnot. That's fine. But at the same time, this is some nonsense. Like, Daru straight up lost the fight and he changes his word. It's just so crazy to me. Like, I do not like this fight. It feels like a JoJo fight to me. Not to say JoJo fights are bad, but sometimes they can be wacky. We're being honest. So,
for sure. Like, this fight definitely exhibits the wacky like element for some reason. It's like almost like a joke fight, and it knows it too. Like the fight itself knows it's almost played to be a joke. That's how it seems to me. So, Chiyo versus Kankuro, I gotta be honest with you, like D tier 2.
Hey, this one here. How did this one get in? But there's other fights like Kisame and B9 here. What the heck?
I don't know.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't make this tier list. Like Thunder said, I just picked one that seemed like it had the best fights in it so far. So, and yeah, I apologize.
No, it's all right. Yeah.
The Seven Ninja Swordsman aspect, I gotta be honest with you, that one, it's cool to see everyone fight the Seven Ninja Swordsman. And it's cool to see the Seven Ninja Swordsman fight again, or fight for the first time. But it wasn't as entertaining to me as, like, I think almost all the War Arc fights, the beginning War Arc fights, are really just not that fun to watch for me.
Yeah. This one, dude, there's an interesting premise with it. It's cool, I guess, to see, but I don't know. I just don't think this fight sticks to landing. That might be my opinion in anime and manga form. Like, it just doesn't really work. I don't know what it is. I think it's just like, I don't know if it's because their opponents are mainly like the jobbers, in the alliance, or I know in the anime like Kakashi and Guy fight more, but even then, like, the fights just aren't good. Like, I don't know what it is. So I be honest, like, it's not that good. Like, it throws me off a little bit, but it sucks to say too because the group is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not that good.
All right, so now we have Kakashi versus Edo Itachi. Kakashi. Kakashi versus Edo Zabuza, excuse me. This fight I do love. I think it's the only War Arc fight, or beginning War Arc fight that I actually really like. Having said that, though, I'm not really entirely going to put it in A. I think thematically it works. The choreography is not there per se, because of how quick Kakashi wrapped things up. So, as a fight, it's cool, but I think thematically it holds more weight. And even then, though, it's almost like a rehash in a way. The only thing I will say that it really does land for me is the flashback that Kakashi has during the fight to the bridge when Naruto says, like, Haku and Zabuza were our enemies, but I really like them, and Kakashi says he feels the same way. It almost is as if, like, we're in the same shoes, because, like, they're meant to be enemies, right? But we really love Zabuza and Haku. So it's almost like Naruto speaking for us as the fans. So I love everything about that fight, but I think it's B tier, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Naruto and B versus Nagato and Itachi. I gotta be honest with you, I'll put this in A. Like, I think it's a great fight, but I don't know if S is. I know a lot of people will say it's S because of how crazy the stops pulled out between every single character, specifically Nagato and Itachi. But I mean, it does a pretty good job. It does a pretty good job of like cementing how strong Itachi actually can be when he finally lets loose. And seeing him go toe to toe with Naruto, like, really for the first time, like really actually fighting Naruto for the first time, is really cool. Thunder, you got anything to add to that one?
No, I mean, it's interesting to see, the Rinnegan abilities in Nagato. I will say this fight it just kind of passes you by, which kind of holds me back from, like, me personally putting against Isaiah. Like, I think it's a good fight because you can see, obviously, like you said, Itachi let loose and whatnot. But it's the one thing that throws me off is that it's Kabuto controlling Nagato. So it's almost like, is this almost like, and he uses the Rinnegan well, but it's almost, the fight almost goes by a little too quickly, in my opinion, in both formats. Like, I would have loved to see Nagato stick around a little bit more. So my only complaint is that we didn't get to see more from Nagato. Like, obviously Itachi goes on later in the war and stuff like that, but it almost feels like when Nagato gets used up quicker than other Edo Tensei fighters, it's like, dude, I don't know. I wasn't as big a fan of that. Like, everything with Nagato was great. It was so cool seeing him stack the Rinnegan abilities.
Yeah.
Literally, my only complaint is that I think maybe it should have been longer, especially since Kishimoto gave more time to far less intriguing fights.
Yeah.
But that's just me. That's just me.
I agree. So 100%. Nagato was definitely him, and I think we could have used more. But even if he had been, I think the Allied Shinobi force would have been a lot more detrimental in terms of numbers. The fight between the Kage, the Edo Kage, I gotta be honest with you, it was cool, but I don't think I put it above C tier, just because, like, they're not the Kage that are in there aren't really built up that much, at least as far as Mu and the whatever the third Mizukage, or whatever the Mizukage's name is. I can't really remember, but like, again, that is stuff I just don't really think they're that enjoyable to watch personally. But I don't think they're bad. I think C tier is a fair place to put them.
Yeah.
Gaara versus Raza, I do think is a good fight. But again, like with a lot of these, I think it holds more thematic weight than anything else. So being able to see Gaara and his father finally reconcile and come to a clear understanding of how they were toward each other is a great moment. And so as a fight, it's pretty good, but I think it holds more thematic weight than anything else.
Yeah, the fight itself is kind of like, it's very minimal. They like clash with Sand and like forces Rasa into this position to kind of wrap him around and whatnot. But I think the dialogue is honestly what elevates this encounter more.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to go on to Sage Naruto versus the Third Raikage. I have no problem putting this in A tier. God bless America. Do I not have any? Because, like, this is like a Naruto pain like moment for him. Like, the Third Raikage is someone that, like, almost nobody else but Naruto could, like, really beat. Because and it's funny because Naruto does it in a Naruto clever way. He does, like, his own meta awareness of his own abilities, and the fact that he was able to come up with the plan like he did, just have the, like, he took the intel of what he had from, like, knowing that the fight that happened between the Third Raikage and the A-Tails, and he used that to his advantage. Like, okay, now I figured out a way that I could possibly, and it's not like a guarantee that it was gonna happen or that it was gonna work, but Naruto, like, took a chance on it, like, okay, that's like the best chance we have of stopping this guy. And so, like the pain situation, like, Naruto was really the only person there that could really handle the Third Raikage, and he was like their last hope of survival. So, I love that. I love that fight. It's so amazing. Go ahead if you have anything to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I think it's very. I like the whole aspect of Naruto needing to fish out intel from Killer Bee, and bringing Sage Mode back is always a positive, because the thing about Sage Mode is, like, it's very different fundamentally from how Naruto's QB Chakra Mode is, and it's stronger in different ways. So, kind of like doing that adds an element to the fight, which I think a lot of people enjoyed, because there was like a problem that Naruto couldn't just speed and bulldoze powers way through this situation, which I like a lot.
Yeah. Madara versus the Ninja Alliance. You know what? S tier.
Yeah.
We have to, bro. That's like the introduction of the man who's the legend. Like, this is like the myth, the man, the legend, and, like, we talk about the build up for Itachi. This man, you know what? If you want a clear explanation of how well this man was built up, look at Swag Kage's, like, video of Madara, dissecting Madara, like that. Like, he understands it perfectly. Like, this man was built up for a while, and the fact that he, like, was, like, got all this build up and was paid off like this, yeah. I mean, I don't see anybody could really argue this being S tier, even though it's not really a fight. It's more like a one-sided stomp. The fact that it's an army, like, he's stomping an army. Yeah, there's just no way you can't put it in S tier.
Yeah.
Thunder, you got anything?
No, I think this fight just speaks for itself. Like, it's literally just Madara ragging on an army, and you just get to see all these characters try and jump him and whatnot. I think you pretty much covered the thoughts. It's like, it's just a visual spectacle that goes to the hype that the character has been, like, going throughout the series. So I think it's just, honestly, like, no question S.
Yeah. Madara versus the Five Kage, I almost want to put it in this because of, like, the landmark that it kind of, like, sets for the series, but the fact that like the whole Sasuke and Itachi fight in Nichibunden, like Madara is kind of holding back, so it's like I don't know, it's almost anticlimactic, but at the same time, like the five Kage are pressing Madara enough to like get him to compliment them and recognize them as like, okay, you guys are definitely worthy of the title Kage. So that in itself, and the fact that this is the first time that each one of them are fighting with each other for the first time, and that their teamwork was so on point that they actually had to have Madara like pull out the perfect Susanoo, was definitely a testament to them in itself. So as a whole, thematically, I think it works pretty good. It's not like one of the more like, it doesn't mean too much for the series, but thematically, because it's the five Kage versus the main-ish, main villain of the series, I think I'm okay with putting in A tier.
Yeah.
Now we'll go on to Kabuto and Sasuke versus... Itachi and Sasuke versus Kabuto. I want to put it in S, but I don't know.
I think it's cool seeing Sage Mode, and all the abilities Kabuto does. My one issue with this fight is that it's very short, and it's done where, like, a technique that had not any real foreshadowing was kind of introduced into this fight for the sake of it being kind of like a convenient move to finish off Kabuto, which kind of separates it. It's also a bit confusing the first time around, like understanding Itachi's explanation on Izanami. I'm not saying it's the most complex thing. I'm saying like watching it for the first time and reading it, you're kind of like, huh? Yeah. So it's a little I do like it though, and I do like the whole like aspect between Itachi, Kabuto, and Sasuke. I think it makes for some great interaction. But as far as the fight itself, it's not really that crazy, especially since Itachi and Sasuke are playing defense for most of the fight.
Yeah.
It's almost not really a fight. It's just kind of more so stalling until a win condition comes up. So maybe like B in my opinion, but...
Yeah. I could agree. I'll put it in like B, but I'll say like a high B. Like it's like right on the cusp of an A tier fight. You know what I'm saying? Now we'll go on to Naruto and B versus the Jinchuriki with under Obito's control. I'll give it this one a B tier, because it's almost like a pre-fight to the more serious fight. Like, obviously, it's cool seeing the Jinchuriki interacting with Naruto and B, even though they're kind of being controlled. But that moment that he has with all the tail beasts and their Jinchuriki, it's really cool. It's really interesting to see something like that. But I gotta be honest, like, I think I was more invested in the fight that happens after this than this fight specifically. But it's also pretty all entertaining, so it's engaging. So I'll put it in B. I think that's a fair place to put it. Going on to Obito versus Naruto, B, Kakashi, and Guy. Bro, this fight is an A tier thing for me, because the fact that all of these characters are on panel, like, these are all characters we know and love, right? There's nobody that's below an A tier level character as far in terms of like popularity that's here. And the fact that they're all on screen and fighting Obito, I don't know, it's so... And Obito himself being like, Obito, like the villain that we all, let's be honest, we all love Obito. Or, how cool he is when he's fighting in the mask or whatever. And then seeing like Kakashi being able to outsmart Obito with his own Kamui, him figuring out that it's Kamui, and like being able to come up with a plan to finally hit Obito and finally unmasking Obito. Like, everything works in this fight. It's a great fight. The choreography's there, the tactics that are there, the thematic element and the thematic weight that it holds for Kakashi and Obito. It's just, I don't know, I could go on and on about this fight. I actually rewatched this section of the fight a lot because of...
No, it's great. It's you're really getting to see like a lot of strong characters like attempt to deduce Obito's ability, and he's like pretty much dealing with the only counter that exists to him, but it's they're slowly unearthing like the misfits of Obito, and you get the whole like tail beast section, which I really like. Naruto linking up with Kurama, so there's a lot of great stuff there, and it's always great to see Obito fight because he has such a cool ability. So I really like that. I think this is just a great encounter.
Yeah, for sure. Kakashi versus Obito, no one better argue with me putting this in S tier. Like, I'm not taking any arguments. That, like, to me, that is the epitome of what Naruto meant to me as a kid. Like, this, like, so excluding who it is, like, let's just put Kakashi out of it. the fact that it's a simple on the ground, one-on-one ninjutsu taijutsu fight is what made Naruto. Like, but is what made the series what it is. Like, that was the reason I started watching this show. And like, yeah, like it could be akin to small stuff, like small scale stuff, especially compared to like, giant Rasen Shuriken, Susanoo arrows and whatnot. But there's something to be said about a fight like this, that the fact that it's a small scale 1v1 on the ground fight that still keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time says a lot. So, and again, that's all choreography. That's not even mentioning the thematic weight this fight holds. Now, obviously, there is that Itachi and Sasuke issue that we said earlier, that how like Obito is kind of holding back in his own way in this fight. So it's kind of the same thing, but I don't know. I don't think that takes away from like how crazy this fight is every second. You know what I'm saying? As a short fight, I'll give it that. But again, it compensates with how much crazy stuff is into this short fight.
Yeah. No, I mean, this fight is just so good for so many reasons. Like, everybody's already said it and given this fight praise, and it deserves it. Everything from the choreography, the flashbacks, the music, the sentiment, the vibe. It's all S tier.
Yeah, for sure. Obito as the Jinchuriki versus the Ninja Alliance. I actually like this. A lot of people think this is where like the war, like the later war arc kind of tends to drag. And I can understand that to a certain extent. But it is really cool seeing everybody else interacting, you know what I'm saying? Everybody else getting their time to shine. And really just all working together to defeat this one opponent. And then obviously the reanimated Hokage showing up and getting their entrance, and Sasuke getting his entrance. It's all great. It's one of those things where it's like I could watch this arc, because it's almost as many like a mini arc within the war arc itself, and I could watch it all day long. It's really good. Every character moment is really top tier, in my opinion. Like everybody from even Shikamaru being able to like persuade the Ninja Alliance force to keep their morale up, to Naruto just slamming Rasengan into Obito's back, figuring out that it's Sage Jutsu that works on him. Stuff like that. It's all great. The interactions with the Hokage, like Tobirama and Naruto, is great. It's all great. I can't stress enough how great this mini arc is.
Yeah.
And so I want to put it in A tier. I think it deserves an A tier spot. Madara versus the Tailed Beast. It's not much of a fight, but it definitely showcases how strong. Again, we've already seen how strong Madara is, but the fact that he's going toe to toe with like 9-tailed beast, pretty much blind, and the fact that it's just so crazy. Like, it cements Madara even more so than he already was cemented, and because of that, I want to put it in A, but it is a short like an engagement, so I think I want to put it in B.
Yeah, it's just like a cool like beat down sort of thing, like big flex moment, but it's really not that crazy, you know.
Yeah. Madara versus Sasuke and Naruto, like when he first awakens, or when he comes back alive. Same thing. It's a cool interaction, but at the same time, it's like very short. Like I don't know. Like I almost want to put it in B, because again, like because of who it is, I want to put it in A. But it's a really short fight. It doesn't really mean much a whole lot.
Yeah, there's nothing really there. It's just Madara doing some dynamics, talking with Sasuke, and then hang out. It's done well. Like, it's beautifully animated, but there isn't much substance there.
Well, thematically, I think it works because like Naruto and Sasuke are literally at death's door. So that's a huge moment. Like the fact that both of them at the same time are like literally out of commission, and they're fatigued. Yeah, like they're the Ninja Alliance's best chance to win the war, and so it definitely like raises the tension and raises the stakes. But because of how like short and sweet it is, it just kind of has to go into B tier. Guy versus Madara, I'm putting that in S tier.
Yeah,
I don't see anybody ever arguing with me about that. Like I can't see it in the comments. Ain't no way. Like. Don't even, if you have a problem with it, don't even bother, because like you just need to rewatch it or reread it to figure out that like this. Come on now, the fact that Madara like literally acknowledged Guy as the strongest taijutsu user, that alone should put it in S tier, like without a doubt. So, there's not much like I said before. There's not much I could say about this fight that hasn't already been said before. So I think S tier is a perfect place to put it. Madara versus Naruto and Sasuke as the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. It's great. I love it. I just wish we would have got more of it. That's really the only thing I could say.
Yeah, it's very it stopped short. I would have loved to see just more, and that's probably one of the complaints people have with like Madara going out the way he did. We never got that final bout where he was really pressed. It was just like he overwhelmed everybody, and it just felt very like, you know. And I know a lot of people have their own opinions on that, but I would have loved to see more from Madara against Naruto and Sasuke at this stage, because he was more of, I think he gave the idea, he was definitely more of an intimidating combatant, at least character-wise, compared to Kaguya, who as a combatant was as dumb as bricks, to be honest, if I'm being 100% with you.
100%, yeah, for sure. Like, and I think that, like, I could probably put this in A tier because of how crazy everything was. And the fact that it even though it's relatively short, it still does a good job, you know, showcasing, like, Naruto and Sasuke's abilities as almost like as a warm-up, I guess, to the bigger fight they're going to have in a second. But like you said, I think this Madara got underused, and he would have definitely been a really good replacement for Kaguya. Not to say I don't like Kaguya's design and whatnot and the idea of her. Personally, I've said this before, I think she just didn't get enough build-up to really cement herself as the final villain. Madara, on the other hand, got the perfect build-up.
Yeah, she's just very bland. Like, despite being stronger, and she obviously displays like a lot of power in her fights, it's her fights are hindered by the fact that she's literally getting comms from Black Zetsu the entire time. Like, she doesn't have that much to her, and I think most people would just agree. It's not that it didn't feel as well as much as a payoff, to be honest. You know, there is a lot of cool stuff with the Kaguya fight, like her shifting dimensions and whatnot. I think that made for some wonderful visuals, but a lot of the fight I just wasn't a fan of. Whether that be like, I think everything in the lava and ice dimension is great. After that, though, I'm not as much of a fan of the pacing of that fight. That's just me. But you know, that again, like I think it's just it's all right. It's an all right fight. Like,
that's kind of segues into the Kaguya versus Team 7 fight, really, because like it's so great to me though, because like we'll finally get to see Team 7 all together fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the one thing that really lands it for me, because I mean it really is a callback to the Team 7 versus Zabuza kind of fight. You know, even though that Sakura wasn't involved in the Zabuza fight, it is really cool to see them all together fighting. And so, like, and I'm a sucker for stuff like that. Like, I really am. Especially when it comes to Naruto. Like, I'm really a sucker for, like, callback and, like, what they mean going forward. And I'll put this fight in A tier, like, 50% because of the DMS Kakashi. I mean, look, man, I'm a Kakashi fan, and I was getting a little bit pissed off that Kakashi was not getting his time. You know what I'm saying? It really grinded my gears, seeing Kakashi on the sidelines. I understand why, because, I mean, what can he do in a fight like that? But just the fact that he wasn't involved was really starting to get to me, and so the fact that he was able to get that time to shine was really all I wanted. I remember, like reading it, and I didn't even care about the logic behind how it happened. I was just like, bro, this is what I want. Thank you so much, Kishimoto, for being able to put him in there, at least him do something, you know. And so I think as a whole, the fight's great, but I'm not going to put it in S tier, but I think A tier is a fine place for it. So now we're going to the last fight. Excuse me. Naruto and Sasuke from the Final Valley, the final fight. Now, like the Neji and Naruto fight, I apologize, for putting this in the thumbnail, saying it's a trash fight. I do not at all think this is a trash fight. So I had to do that for the thumbnail to get y'all's attention. But I think this fight is awesome. This fight, I mean, like the part 1 Naruto and Sasuke fight, it's everything that the series has been building towards. It's everything that the war arc was really building towards. Like every little subtle moment that Naruto and Sasuke were getting, that really was like, okay, like who's got the one up now? Like honestly, like who's got the one up now? It seemed like for the most part Naruto did, because Sasuke was like looking at Naruto like, bro, he's got this control over this much chakra. Like, this is what Naruto's capable of now. But then during the Renegade section of the Madara fight, it seemed like Sasuke, like all the compliments that Madara was giving Sasuke, like it seemed like, oh, well, maybe Sasuke is really still the superior fighter here. So finally being able to see these two finally go at it after all this time, it's so great. Thunder, you want to say anything? I know you got plenty.
No, I mean, I think this fight it's S tier. There's not really too much to it. I mean, there's a lot to it. Obviously, the whole ideological clash between the two, pretty much the culmination of their journeys throughout Shippuden. It's just so good. There's not. I feel like, and Studio Period slammed dunked it with this fight. There's so much little stuff they added in, like Kieran. From the final clash, everything about it, I just enjoyed. And I enjoyed like how this fight progressed as a parallel to their first fight with, as opposed to them powering up through the duration of the first fight.
Yeah.
These two hit their stride, and then it turns into a whole like old-fashioned fist fight. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed that aspect of it too. But everything about it is just
one thing I will say that I wish that would have been done in this fight was that I wish there would have been more like, and I get there was more of it at the end, but in the beginning stage of the fight there was not a whole lot of hand-to-hand smaller like ninjutsu. Like I'm a sucker for like hand-to-hand taijutsu like fight like that. So like I had a feeling when I was watching it in the anime. I read the manga first, but then I was hoping in the anime would have added a little bit more to it. But when I watched the anime, like I knew like we wouldn't get too much like small hand-to-hand interaction with them. Because I love stuff like that. But I was like, I know it won't be long before they're already into their respective giant avatars. So, but I not to say I don't like the giant like avatar fights like that, but I think I'm more on the edge of my seat when it comes to smaller, scale hand-to-hand taijutsu, ninjutsu fights. So, but other than that, I think this fight is definitely S tier. And the way the fight wraps up with Sasuke, finally coming back and finally hearing his feelings about Naruto. Like we never got that side of Sasuke. We never got to see his perspective on like how he feels about Team 7 and everybody else. Like at least not in the concrete, verbal way. So I think finally being able to see that and Sasuke and Naruto finally reconciling and, coming together again and Team 7 together again. It's a nice wrap up of the fight and the series as a whole. So definitely S tier. So yeah, I think that's going to wrap up the whole tier list. Thunder, you got anything to say about the list as a whole, or how do you think?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, these weren't, we obviously didn't compartmentalize it in each tier. These are just like general thoughts about each of the fights and whatnot. Obviously, think what you want. It's subjective. What's your favorite fight? We're just kind of, giving our mini takes on it.
Yeah, for sure. So. I do like this list. I think we did a pretty good job. We try to be as objective as we can, but obviously a list like this is going to be subjective. But I think we did pretty good, and I really enjoy this one. So Thunder, thank you for being on the channel again. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Look forward to the next video next week, guys. I'll leave a link below for Thunder's channel. Go like and subscribe to his channel. And until my next one, like snow, out.